Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement seminar. In this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to retirement, or maybe even the 3 months or 3 weeks leading up to retirement, because you're going to retire soon, since you're at the pre-retirement seminar. And you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know? What do I need to do, if anything? So we're going to answer those questions for you today. And I've organized all of the answers to those questions in the form of this checklist that we're going to go through. So I'm going to help you understand your membership. We'll talk about your contributions to the retirement system. We'll look at a retirement timeline. We'll talk about your tier. Okay. I'm also going to help you estimate your retirement benefit. So we'll talk about the retirement formula, because understanding a little bit of pension math helps you understand how much retirement you will receive. We'll talk a little bit about considering purchasing service credit. We'll talk a lot about how vacation affects your salary. I'll show you the benefit estimate tool that you actually use to get an estimate of your benefit. I will also help you verify your retirement eligibility. We'll talk about choosing your retirement date. I will tell you all about the application process to retire, including the 5 retirement allowance options. I will help you understand other benefits like medical, dental, vision. We'll talk about a few other life events, and then signing up for Acera News. So it's a lot of stuff. Let's jump right in. Okay, first topic on the checklist, understanding your Acera membership. So who is Acera? Well, Acera, the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association, is made up of a lot of people. There are about 90 of us that work here. And what we do here is we provide retirement and disability and death benefits to all of our members. So that is all of you. You are also part of Acera because you are members of Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. So you either currently work or at some point you worked full-time in a retirement eligible position for one of these 6 agencies in Alameda County that use Acera to provide pension benefits to their employees. So in that position, working in that full-time retirement eligible position for one of these agencies, you are automatically an Acera member. You automatically became an Acera member. And as an Acera member, you contribute to Acera's fund with every paycheck, okay? So if you look at your paycheck, you'll see a line in the before tax deductions column that says retirement. And that's money coming out of each and every paycheck and going into Acera's fund. And then your employer is also contributing to Acera's fund on your behalf. So we don't just want that money to sit there. So we invest it all over the world in a diverse array of investments. And we earn a lot of interest on our investments. And it's these 3 sources of income combined, your contributions, your employer's contributions, and the investment earnings, that give us this big pool of money that we call Acera's fund. Okay, so what do we do with that pool of money now that we have it? Well, you are working and you are earning credit toward retirement as you work throughout your career. Then at some point in the future, you're going to stop working and you're going to start collecting the retirement that you earned while you were working. And you're going to collect that retirement every month for the rest of your life in the form of a pension payment on the last business day of every month. And like I said, let me emphasize that it's for life. It happens every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It's pretty amazing. So here is a timeline of some milestones that you're probably going to want to get to know regarding your Acera membership. Since this is a pre-retirement seminar, you've probably already passed some of these milestones, but let me just talk about each one of these. So we have your date of hire, which is your first day of work in your full-time retirement eligible position. If you started out in that position, then that would be the first day that they asked you to show up to work. Now, if you started out in some other capacity, like part-time or seasonal or something, this would be the first day of that full-time retirement eligible position. Okay, then for almost everyone, 2 weeks goes by and the first day of your second pay period is your date of entry into Acera. That's your first day of Acera membership, and that is when you start earning retirement. Now, there are a couple of employers. I think it's the Housing Authority and Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District that actually start membership on the date of hire. And then everyone else starts on the first day of the second pay period. If I'm wrong about that, whatever it says on our website is correct about which two employers it is. Okay, so now you're an ACERA member and you're working, you're earning credit toward retirement. 5 years goes by. And once you have 5 years of service credit, which means that you've worked 5 full-time years in that retirement eligible position, you're considered vested in the retirement system. And vesting just means guaranteed. Okay. So once you're vested in the retirement system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. You're guaranteed the guaranteed benefits, basically. Vesting years to achieve vesting will also include a reciprocal service that you did with another reciprocal agency that you've linked together with ACERA. And we will talk about, touch on reciprocity a tiny bit later on in the presentation. Okay, so now that you're vested, the next pension milestone is that at some point after you are vested, you become actually eligible to retire. And it's based on some combination of your years of service and your age. And I'll tell you later on in the presentation what the different combinations are that get you to retirement eligibility. And it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. But this would be the first day that you could retire. And so you can retire on this day, or you could keep working and keep earning more retirement and earning higher and higher pension benefit. Okay, then there's a date sometime on or after your retirement eligibility date that you choose to actually retire. So this is a date that you choose. And this is your first day of retirement. This is when you stop earning your pension and you start collecting it. And you will collect it every month for the rest of your life, as I was saying, until your death. And that's when your retirement payments stop. But depending on which retirement option you select, and there's 5 different ones you're going to choose from, 4 of them will actually allow you to leave a continuance to a beneficiary. A continuance is a continuing payment, and in most cases, it's every month for the rest of your beneficiary's life. And so they would receive a continuance until their death. So that is why that milestone is on there. Okay, so on to the next item. Okay, what you're seeing here is a screenshot of a piece of the retirement worksheet. There was a link to this in the invite for this seminar, but if you missed that and you didn't open that up, I can show you exactly where to find that. So let me just switch my screen share here real fast. Doesn't look like it worked. Hang on. There we go. Okay, this is our website. And you simply go under news and events, go down to retirement planning seminars where you sign up for the seminar. And then you pop open this accordion under pre-retirement webinar, and there's the retirement planning worksheet. So this is a 2-page worksheet. So what this basically is this is, if you want to use this is purely optional, but this can serve as your takeaway from this webinar. Because it's a 3-hour webinar, I tell you a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is kind of general information, but as you go along, you'll learn your specific numbers for your situation. And so if you want to, you can fill those in here as we go along. And then later on, when you're a few months down the road, when you're trying to remember what you learned, you can pull out this worksheet and it has all your numbers in here. Okay, so I'll revisit the different parts of this worksheet as we go through the presentation. For right now, since we know that your ACERA entry date is 2 weeks after your date of hire, you could go ahead and put that in right now. If you happen to remember that, it could be a long time ago, so you probably don't remember the exact date, but you can, I've written up here approximate dates, so you can always just put in approximately what your ACERA entry date is. If you do want to see what your exact entry date is, you can log into your account on our website and it will tell you your exact entry date. Now, at this point, if you want to, you can put in a projected retirement date if you happen to already be targeting a date. But you may learn something during the presentation that may make you want to adjust that date. So you may want to just pencil that in. Also, if you're using the worksheet right on the website, you clicked on the link, and you want to fill it in on your computer, you can do that. I recommend downloading the sheet first, then opening it up on your computer, and that way, whatever you type in, then you can save, and it will be there when you come back to it later. Okay, just a few more details about vesting. Like I said, it happens at 5 years of full-time service credit, or the equivalent of 5 full-time years of service credit. So if you started out full-time, went immediately down to part-time, worked 10 years at half-time, then that would give you 5 full-time years of service credit, for example. Okay, and the guarantee, I said it means guaranteed, it's by state law that it guarantees you your pension benefits. And the vested benefits are that retirement allowance for life, an annual cost of living increase, known as the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, that you get to that pension benefit, and a $1,000 lump sum death benefit. And there are other death benefits that come with the different retirement options, which we'll go through in the second half of the presentation. Okay, so now that you know your vested date is 5 years after your entry date, you could pencil that in here as well. If you already know you're well vested, it was a long time ago, it's not super important. So you don't have to figure out exactly what that would be. Okay, so let me tell you about your tier. Your tier is based on your date of entry into ACERA. So to find your tier, you just need to remember basically what your date of entry was. Okay, you're going to look at one of these timelines. If you're a safety member, which is a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, there may be some other sworn officers in there, you would be looking at this bottom timeline. If you're not a safety member, we call you a general member. And if you're a general member, you're going to look at the top timeline. But if you're a general member for the Housing Authority or Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District, you'll look at your appropriate timeline here. Okay, now the way the timeline works is if you entered ACERA before each of the cutoff dates that is represented by each one of the dots here, that puts you in the earlier tier. If you enter ACERA on that day or later, that puts you in the tier after. So for example, if you are a general member and entered ACERA before July 1st, 1983, that would put you in tier 1. If you entered ACERA July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would put you in tier 2. If you entered ACERA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would put you in tier 4. These, if you have reciprocity, it would be the date that you entered the first reciprocal system that you have linked together that would be used to determine your tier. And there are some other caveats to possibly putting you in an earlier tier. If you want more information about that, just go to acera.org/tier, and all the details of that are in there. I just want to point out a couple more things. For Housing Authority and LARPD, there's a couple of different date cutoffs here, so you just want to check that out. For LARPD, there's tier 3 instead of tier 2. And then for safety members, if you entered ACERA on October 17th, 2010 to December 31st, 2012, there's 2 tier 2s, tier 2C and tier 2D. And you know which one you're in, or the one that you're in is based on a selection that you made within 45 days of becoming a safety member. If you don't remember which selection you made, just go ahead and log into your account on our website. And you would just go to acera.org, you click the login button, you log into your account, and your date of entry will be in there. Also, while you're in there, it'll just tell you which tier you're in. Okay, so you can just figure, it'll tell you exactly which tier you're currently in. So I think that's what that question up on the board was about, tier 2B, C, and so forth. For the general members, there's just tier 2. It's actually tier 2A. Okay, so now that you know which tier you're in, you can feel free to mark that on your worksheet if you like. If you're a safety member, you may have some time as a general member before you got into your safety membership. So you could mark 2 tiers on one worksheet, or you could do 2 different worksheets if you want. Okay. Now let's talk about estimating your specific retirement benefit. Okay, so before I get to your specific retirement benefit, I'm going to talk in general about how we calculate your retirement benefit, because it will really, if you understand this basic formula and the factors that go into the formula, it will help you understand how to maximize your retirement, how to get the most out of your pension, and may help you in choosing your retirement date. Okay. So let me tell you how we actually calculate your pension. When you go to retire, you are going to get as your lifetime monthly retirement allowance, which is your pension payment every month for the rest of your life. And let me just pause here and say that there's a lot of synonymous terms for this payment. It's pension benefit, monthly benefit, pension payment, retirement allowance, monthly retirement allowance. These are all synonyms for the same monthly payment you get every month for the rest of your life from your pension. Okay, so when you retire, you are going to get in retirement a percentage of your highest salary that you earned from anywhere in your career. You're going to get a percentage of that salary for each year of service. So for each year that you work, you're going to get a certain percentage of your highest salary. Okay, so this formula is the math version of this sentence. So let me give you an example. It'll help explain this better. Let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service is 2%. And let's say that you work for 20 years full time, meaning that you earn 20 years of service credit. That means that in your retirement allowance, you're going to get 2% of your highest monthly average salary for each one of those 20 years that you worked. So 2% of your salary for each of the 20 years. That means that you're going to get, when we multiply those two together, you're going to get 40% of your salary as your retirement allowance. Okay. To put some more numbers in here, let me give you the example. Let's say that your highest working salary that you were earning every month was $5,000. Well, your retirement allowance in this calculation is 40% of that amount. 40% of 5,000 is $2,000. Okay. So you can see how the multiplying of those three factors together gives us what your retirement allowance is, and you can kind of see how you get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service with this example. Now, what I want to do is tell you a little more about each one of these three factors in a little more detail, and it will help you understand how we do this calculation. Okay, because in general, the higher any of these three numbers are, the higher your retirement allowance is going to be, because it's a multiplication. Okay, so the higher the age factor percentage, the higher your years of service credit, the higher your salary is going to equal a higher pension benefit. So let me tell you about the age factor percentage first. Which percentage of your highest salary are you going to get for each year of service? Well, it's going to be based on your age at retirement. And we're going to figure out which percentage from this age factor chart that we have. We're going to take one of these percentages out of this chart and put it in the formula for you based on your age. So to navigate this chart first, if you're a safety member, you look at this side. If you're a general member, you look at this side. Okay. And then you find your tier. So if you're a general tier 2 member, you just look at this column and you forget about all the other numbers. Okay. So you only have to look at your one tier column. Now, the way this works is, let's say that you're a general member, you're in tier 2, and you retire at age 62. So we come over to the chart, we go down to age 62, we go over to general tier 2, and we see 2.09%. That is the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service, okay, based on this chart. And all of these percentages come out of the law that forms your tier, okay? And so these percentages don't change, okay? These are, pretty much set in stone. One thing that you will probably notice about the chart is that the percentages get larger the older you are when you retire, okay? So they go up and up and up the longer you wait to retire. So the older you are when you retire, the higher the percentage you're going to get. So if you, in that same example, waited until 65, you would get 2.43% of your highest salary for each year of service. You'll probably also notice there's a maximum percentage for each tier represented by the blue box. So if you retire at that age or older, you're just simply going to get the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. So they stop, the age factor percentages stop increasing at that age. You may also notice that I've skipped a bunch of the ages here. There's big gaps here. And that's because there's so many age factors, they don't all fit on the slide, because there's actually an incremental increase in your age factor percentage every 3 months that you get older and don't retire. And it's based on your birthday. And that's what this bullet point up here is telling you. Well, so let's say your birthday is January 16th. Let's say January 15th. 3 months after your birthday is April 15th. Okay, so you don't retire yet. You go up one notch in the chart, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. Or you decide I'm going to work another 3 months, okay, which would be July 15th. So you work after July 15th, you go up another notch in the chart, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. Next 3 months would be October 15th, and then back to January 15th in this example. So every time you pass one of those quarter year days based on your birthday, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage that we would use to calculate your retirement up to the maximum for your tier. Now, if you want to see the full chart that has all of the percentages, it's out on our website at acera.org/age, or you can just search for it in the search blank. It pops right up. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to tell you about the age factor percentages. Let me talk about service credit. You start earning service credit when you enter Acera on your first day of Acera membership, and you are going to earn service credit all the way until your retirement date if you go straight from active work into retirement. Now, for some people, occasionally there are people that will stop working and not retire immediately. And what they're doing is they're terminating their employment, but they're deferring their retirement to a later date, and we call them deferred members. So you're either an active member where you're actively working, you're a deferred member, or you're a retired member. And most people go straight from active work into retirement. Okay, so if you become a deferred member, though, you are not earning service credit during that time. So really, you earn service credit from your first day of Acera membership all the way until your last day of work. Now, when do you earn service credit? Well, you earn service credit while you work, during your regular work hours. You also earn service credit during all of these leave times: vacation leave, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays. And we specify earned vacation leave. Now, you do not earn service credit during all of these times in this list, which is leave without pay. You do not earn service credit during that time. Also, if you purchase additional vacation on top of your earned vacation, which some of our employers will allow you to do, you don't earn service credit while you're out on that purchased vacation. So if you ever mark your timesheet with purchased vacation for that portion of time, you do not earn service credit. Also, you don't earn service credit if you sell your vacation back to your employer for cash, your earned vacation. But sold vacation does not make your service credit part of the formula go up, but it can make the salary part of the formula go up. And we will dive into that topic extensively in just a few moments when I talk about salary. Also, you do not earn service credit during overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, so there is this concept of purchasing service credit, and that would increase the amount of service credit we use in the formula for you, which would increase your retirement allowance. I'm not going to take a deep dive into this topic. I do talk about this at length during our new employee / mid-career seminar, and we have recordings of that out on our website. So if you want more information about that topic, go ahead and check out that seminar. There's also a full page, web page that explains the whole thing at acera.org/purchase. But just briefly, the concept is that there are some types of time that if circumstances were a little bit different, maybe you could have earned service credit, but because the circumstances were what they were, you didn't. So then you can go back and buy that time if it's eligible, and that will increase your amount of service credit in the formula. Examples are part-time work that you did before you got your full-time retirement eligible position. And this is not temporary time for a temp agency or under contract or anything. This is plain old part-time. That would be purchasable. The county's temporary assignment pool time, which is what TAP stands for, would be purchasable, or project work before your full-time retirement eligible position. Also, that 2 weeks between your date of hire and date of entry. Also, if you go out on unpaid leave, including medical leave for your own medical condition, disability leave, or military leave, when you return from that leave, you can buy that time. For the medical and the medical leave, it's 1 year of time per instance of being out on unpaid medical leave that you can buy. There's also redeposits of prior memberships. If you used to be an Acera member in the past, you took a refund of your contributions when you left, and then you come back and you want your service credit back from that original membership, you can redeposit that money to get your service credit back. There's also redeposits of community property, which is where you got divorced and your ex-spouse or ex-state registered domestic partner took a portion of your account. So they took some of your service credit and contributions. If they take a refund of contributions, then you can redeposit that equivalent amount of money to get the service credit equivalent amount back that they took with them. Also, if you worked for another public agency in California, that work is purchasable if you have taken a refund of your money from their pension fund. Okay, and like I said, there's a full discussion of that at acera.org/purchase. One more thing that I do want to touch on regarding service credit, though, is what happens to your unused sick leave. And when I'm talking about unused sick leave, I'm not talking to first 5 employees, because I learned recently, actually we all at Acera learned recently that you just lose your sick leave. They don't convert it to service credit. But for everyone else, there is the possibility of converting that Acera will convert your unused sick leave to service credit. Now, this will happen if you go straight from active work into retirement. So what that means going straight from active work into retirement is that your last day on payroll, or also known as your last day in active employment status, is the day before your first day of retirement. Another way to say it is that your retirement date is the next exact day after on the calendar after your last day on payroll. That means you're going straight into retirement. And if you do that, Acera will convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit. Now there's a cap on it, on how much sick leave is convertible. And the cap is in your memorandum of understanding, also known as your MOU. So you want to go read your MOU if you want to see what the cap is for you, if you don't happen to know what it is. What we will do at Acera is we'll take your sick leave that you still have on the books up to the MOU cap, and we will divide by 2 and add that amount to your service credit. So for example, many of the MOUs cap the amount of sick leave days that are convertible at 125 days of sick leave. Okay, so if you're in that scenario and you had 125 days or more of sick leave, we would take 125 days of sick leave, divide by 2, and you would get 62.5 days of additional service credit in the calculation for you. Now, this is business days, not calendar days. So that actually equals out to about 12 plus work weeks, which is about a quarter year additional service credit. So it's a pretty good little boost to your service credit. And people ask, does this push out my retirement date? It does not. Your retirement date is still going to be your retirement date. This simply increases the amount of service credit that we will calculate in the formula for you. Okay. And somebody asked, what if I'm not in a union and I have no MOU? People who are unrepresented follow ACMEA, and this is the only MOU cap that I happen to know off the top of my head. ACMEA has no cap on convertible sick leave. And so if you're not in a union, then you would follow ACMEA, and so there would be no cap. For all the rest of them, you need to check your MOU to see what the cap is. Sure. So there's a question up on the board. So it looks like your birthday is in July. And you're wondering if you retire this coming January, will you receive the cost of living adjustment as well as the quarter month credit? Okay, so this is a question back to the age factor percentage. Sorry, I didn't get to this before. The answer is that if you, okay, so it looks like what you're trying to do is you're trying to retire in January on the day after what your July birthday would be. So like 2 quarters of a year after your birthday. So whether you get the quarter year credit would depend on if you've already achieved the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. If you haven't, and every quarter that passes, you're still going up one notch in the age factor chart, then yes, you would get the quarter year credit or the quarter year credit for the age factor percentage increase in January. Plus, when April 1st comes around, you would get the cost of living adjustment as well. So yes, you would get both in that scenario. Okay, so that is the age factor percentage. That is service credit. Let me tell you about the highest average monthly salary part of the formula. And before I do that, there's one more question up about the 125 days of sick leave. The question is, if you do not have a cap and you have 125 days of sick leave, does that mean you have 125 days of sick leave? I'm not quite sure what you're asking. What it means is that if you oh, service credit, I see. Gotcha. No. In all cases, we are dividing the amount of sick leave by 2. So you will get half of your sick leave as service credit. Now, for the people who have a cap, we can only take the amount of sick leave up to the cap and divide it by 2. And that gives you the additional service credit. There's no scenario in which you get the number of days of sick leave as service credit. We're always dividing it by 2. And you're asking, is the sick leave in days or hours? Well, in the MOU, it might say days or it might say hours. For you, it's convertible. You can just convert it by doing some math. But in any case, if this was in hours, what it would be is 125 days times 8 hours would be however many hours divided by 2, and that would give you a certain additional hours of service credit. But it would all work out to be the exact same thing, the exact same amount increase to your service credit. Okay, let me tell you about the highest average monthly salary. So when you go to retire, we're going to need to do this calculation to determine what your highest average monthly salary is. So what we are going to look for is your period of highest pay during your entire career. This is known as your final compensation period. If you're in tier 1 or tier 3, your final compensation period is going to be your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on if you're paid biweekly or monthly. If you're in tier 2 or tier 4, it's your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. So essentially, for tiers 1 and 3, we're looking at your highest consecutive year of pay. And for tiers 2 and 4, we're looking at your highest consecutive 3 years of pay. Because our goal for the formula is to calculate your highest average monthly salary, what we're going to do is take your total amount of pay during your final compensation period, so that highest year or highest 3 years, and we're going to divide it by the number of months in your final compensation period, either 12 months or 36 months, and that gives us what you made on average per month during that either year or 3 years of pay. So it's a pretty basic calculation. And so that's how we get that number, highest average monthly salary. That's what we put in the formula for you. We multiply it by the other 2 factors to arrive at your pension benefit number. Now, what types of pay are included in that highest average salary calculation? You're probably wondering. Well, of course, your base pay is going to go in there. And just a side note, when we're talking about the pay that is going into your salary calculation, we're talking about gross pay before any deductions have been taken out, including taxes, healthcare, anything. So gross pay. So your base pay is going to be included in there. There may be some other pay codes that count for this calculation. Sometimes those are known as footnotes. These are typically other types of pay based on skills and education. And I can't tell you off the top of my head which other pay codes are included because there's like 1,000 of them. But you can find out for yourself by going to acera.org/pay codes. There's a list of all the pay codes for each employer. You just click on the PDF for your employer, and you can find your pay code by name or by number, and it will say yes or no whether it is in or out of this calculation. The only one that I can tell you that I know for sure is that overtime never counts toward your salary for the purposes of calculating your pension. Okay, now there are two other types of pay, the last two, and this is for tier 1 and tier 2 people. And I label it not tier 4, but it's also not tier 3 because LERPD people can't sell vacation, so that prevents us from including any vacation pay in your salary calculation. So vacation sales, where you sell vacation while you're still actively working, or vacation cash out, where you simply have vacation left over on the books when you stop working, and they pay you off for it at that time. If that is made during the final compensation period, then some of that could be included in your salary calculation. Okay, so tier 4 members and tier 3 members, you can take a snooze at this point. So we're going to talk about this for, I have a few slides on this. So I need to tell you all the details on this because there's a million questions about this and everyone wants to know how this works. And it's something that we have to do. We have to calculate it a certain way. So I might as well just tell you how it all works. Okay, what we're talking about here is your earned vacation that you have either sold or will sell while you're still employed. So this is where you take your earned vacation, you sell it back to your employer for cash while you're still employed. We're also talking about possibly you having vacation left over on the books, your earned vacation that you haven't taken yet by the time you stop working and or retire. Okay, so what we're looking at when we're trying to figure out how much vacation compensation we can include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement allowance is any total of vacation compensation between a combination of vacation sales and vacation cash out that happens during your final compensation period. Now, for people who are making the highest rate of pay at the end of their career, that means we can look at the vacation cash out. If you're not making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career and your final compensation period is going to be some earlier period in your career, then all we're looking at is vacation sales during that time. Okay. But again, let me just stress that when we're trying to figure out what the limit is on how much vacation we can include, we're looking at a combination of vacation sales and cash out that happens during the final compensation period. Okay, now the idea here is that if you sell vacation and or cash out vacation, so you are compensated for your earned vacation during that final compensation period, your total salary that you earned during that final compensation period is a little bit bigger. Because your total salary is a little bit bigger, that makes your average salary over that period larger, a little bit larger. Because your average salary, also known as your highest average monthly salary, also known as your final average salary, is one of the multipliers in the retirement formula that determines your retirement allowance. If your average salary is a little bit bigger, that makes your retirement allowance be a little bit bigger, starting at the time of retirement and for the rest of your life. So the bottom line here is that if you are compensated for your earned vacation during that final compensation period, your retirement allowance goes up. Okay. Now, how much could it possibly go up? Well, it's actually a pretty simple calculation. And here is a chart that's detailing the possible approximate increase to your retirement allowance that could occur based on how many weeks of vacation that we are allowed to include in the salary calculation. So for example, if you are compensated for 6 weeks of your vacation, your earned vacation during that final compensation period, and you're in tier 2, your retirement allowance would be calculated to be 3.8, approximately 3.8% higher than if you had not been compensated for that 6 weeks of vacation. So you would get basically a 3.8% boost to your retirement allowance at the time of retirement and for the rest of your life. And you can kind of see how these percentages go up. It is a pretty nice little boost that you get in your retirement allowance. For tier 1 people, the few tier 1 people that are left around, the boost is accelerated because we're looking at a 1-year final compensation period versus the 3-year final compensation period for tier 2. Okay. Now, there's a cap on how much vacation compensation a SARA is allowed to include in your salary calculation, but also the word must is here, that a SARA must include. So this is written into the law. If you are compensated for your vacation during this final compensation period and it's under the cap for you, we have to include it as salary in your retirement calculation. Okay. So if we have to do it, I might as well explain the ins and outs of it to you, which is why we're having this discussion. So I've been explaining this a lot of different ways over the years, and what I've kind of hit on over the past few years is doing it on this worksheet that I provided for you. So there's 2 different subsections of that retirement worksheet. Let me show it to you again. So it's this retirement planning worksheet. And so these are on the back page, the second page. We're going to be looking at these actually 3 sections on the back page. Alameda Health System employees, county and other employees, and then this part here about the online benefit estimator. So let me talk to the Alameda Health System people first, how to figure out what your specific limit on how much of this vacation compensation we are allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. So if you're an Alameda Health System employee, what you're going to do on your worksheet is you're going to put in this field your hours of PTO, paid time off. Okay. Because Alameda Health System people, for everyone else who doesn't know, they earn leave a little bit differently. The sick leave and the vacation leave are all in one bucket called PTO. So what you do is you put in the hours of paid time of PTO you earn per pay period in this field. I think you can probably find that on your pay stub. Okay. So for this example, let's say you earn 6.7692 hours of PTO per pay period. Okay. Then you do a little multiplication. If you're in tier 1, you multiply that number by 13, and that tells us your limit in hours of how much we would be able to include up to 88 hours of vacation compensation in your final average salary calculation. If you're in tier 2, you multiply that number by 39. So your limit in hours would be 264 in this example. We would be able to include up to 264 hours worth of vacation compensation as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement allowance. There's an exception. If you're in the UAPD union, it's a flat rate. You don't have to do math. For tier 1, it's 120 hours of PTO is your limit. And for tier 2, it's 360 hours of PTO is your limit. Okay. So that's AHS employees. That's how you determine your limit in hours. Okay, now let me talk to the county employees and the employees of the other employers. Okay, and again, this is just tier 1 and tier 2 people, and we're not talking to Livermore Area Recreation and Park District people because you're not allowed to sell vacation. So basically your employer doesn't let you do this. Let me check this question on the board. Okay, let me get to that question in a minute. So you're going to look at this section of the worksheet and you have some fields to fill out here. Okay, you're going to need to know two numbers. You're going to need to know how much vacation you earn per year. And this is measured in weeks. So you earn 2 weeks of vacation per year, or 3 weeks of vacation, or 4 weeks, or 5 weeks, or whatever it is. You're also going to need to know how much vacation your employer will allow you to sell per year. There's a rule somewhere. It could be in your MOU. It could simply be in your employer's policies of how much vacation you're allowed to sell. I think it's in a lot of the MOUs. And this is called the payable number. Okay. So you're going to put that into this field. If you're in tier 1, you are only going to fill out this first column. So in this example, this person earns 5 weeks a year. Their employer will allow them to sell 2 weeks per year. Now, if you're in tier 2, you need to fill out the next 2 columns because we need to do this for each one of, each one of the years in that 3-year final compensation period. So I'm just going to keep it a simple example. And this is going to be the case for many of you, that the number is the same for all 3 years. So for all 3 years, this person earned 5 weeks of vacation for each one of those years, and they were allowed to sell 2 if they wanted to. Okay, now we're going to use these numbers to get what your limit is in weeks. And we're going to use a calculator out on our website. So, and on your worksheet, it says you go to acera.org/vacation. I'll show you what that looks like. So it says acera.org/vacation here. So you go out to our website, you go to acera.org/vacation, and that will take you to this bookmark on this page. And you're going to open up this first section here, this accordion, and there's 2 calculators in here. There's a calculator for tier 1 people, and there's a calculator for tier 2 people. So you simply delete the zeros, and you put in how many weeks of vacation you earn in the first field, and how many weeks of vacation you're allowed to sell in the second field. And it will tell you what your limit in weeks is. Let me do that for tier 2. I'll show you the same thing. So 5 weeks, I earn, 2 weeks I'm allowed to sell. And it will give you a running total as you put in numbers here. Now, so my limit is going to be 6 weeks. So that's what I'm going to put in my worksheet. Okay, now what it's doing here, it's really simple math. It's just taking the lesser of each of these 2 numbers, and then it adds them all up in the end. So the lesser of 5 and 2 is 2 in every case. That's how it's, and 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So that's how it's getting that. Now, if your limit was 3, a lot of people are in this scenario, you earn 5 and you're allowed to sell 3, then your limit would be 9 weeks. Okay. So then you come back to your worksheet and you put that, there's a screenshot. You put that limit into this field. This is your limit for how much of vacation compensation we're allowed to include in the salary calculation for you. Okay, now, if you want to plan ahead and you want to, you're interested in getting compensated for your vacation so that your retirement allowance is maximized, you will want to probably think about selling vacation and or cashing out vacation. So one way to do this, and the very simplest way, is to simply take your limit and cash out that much. You just simply have that much on the books when you stop working, and you don't worry about selling any. So you just have, while you're still employed, you just have, in this example, 6 weeks of vacation on the books. It's right up to your limit. And then we will include 6 weeks of vacation compensation because you're going to be cashed out for 6 weeks. You have 6 weeks on the books, you stop working, they will cash you out for that 6 weeks. And the act of you getting paid for that vacation, we see that come through in your payroll information, which is what we use to calculate your pension. So because you got compensated for 6 weeks of vacation up to your limit, then we will include all 6 weeks worth of that compensation as salary. Okay, let me give you a slightly different scenario. A lot of people are in a similar scenario to this. So you earn 4 weeks of vacation per year. And I'm going to stick with tier 2 here because for tier 1 people, it's pretty easy. You don't have to sell vacation. You just have the amount of vacation up to your limit on the books. And it's not really any more complicated than that. Now, for a few tier two people, there may be a little bit of some caveats here, which I'll tell you about in this scenario. So you earn 4 weeks of vacation per year, and you're allowed to sell 3 weeks of vacation for each one of those years. If you go to the calculator, your limit is going to be 9 weeks worth of vacation compensation we're allowed to include as salary for calculating your retirement. Okay. Now, there's an additional factor here, and this goes for everyone who's not an AHS employee, everyone else who's not an AHS. Your employer will only cash you out when you stop working for 2 times your accrual rate of vacation. So in this example, this person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year. 2 times their annual accrual rate is 8 weeks of vacation. Your employer will not cash you out for any more than 8 weeks worth of vacation in this scenario. They won't cash you out for any more than 2 times your accrual rate. So if you had 9 weeks on the books, you would just lose that extra week. It would just disappear into thin air. You wouldn't get any cash for it. You wouldn't get salary credit for it for the purposes of calculating your retirement. You wouldn't get service credit for it. It just disappears. So in order to prevent that from happening, what you might want to do is, if you can't get up to your limit because of this 2 times accrual rate limit, then that's when you would want to think about selling. Okay, so we want to take that extra week that you would lose otherwise, and you just go ahead and sell that back to your employer while you're still working. And I think you can even do it, right before you stop working. As long as it's a vacation sell and it's not vacation left over in the books when you stop working, then you don't lose it. Okay, so that would get you up to your limit in this scenario. The 1 week that you sold where you were still working and the 8 weeks you cashed out, that would get you up to the 9. Okay, now sometimes I get the question, well, I already sold a bunch of vacation. What can I do? How do I plan this out? Well, you have two. Don't worry, it's fine. It's perfectly all right. You have 2 options here. If you've already sold a bunch of vacation during this, and we're talking only about the vacation that you're selling in what's going to become your final compensation period, the pay periods that are your period of highest pay. Any vacation you sold before that, we don't care about. We're not looking at here. Okay. So if you already sold a bunch of vacation in this period that's going to become your final compensation period, your 2 options are, the first one is simply to cash out the difference. So if you already know you sold 5 weeks of vacation during this, highest 3 years, and this is still a tier 2 example, then you simply take your limit, you subtract that 5 weeks from your limit, and that's how much you cash out, 4 weeks. Because you already sold the 5, you only need to have 4 on the books to get up to the 9. Option number 2 is if you wanted to cash out more than that for whatever reason, just because you can't take the vacation, or you don't want to take the vacation, or whatever reason, you can even have more vacation on the books, up to 2 times your accrual rate, and they'll still cash you out for it, even though you sold vacation previously. Okay. And in this case, we are looking at 5 plus 8 is 13 weeks. Now, your limit in this example is 9 weeks of vacation that we're allowed to include in the salary calculation. So we can only include 9 weeks of vacation pay in the salary calculation out of that 13 weeks. But that doesn't mean that you lost any vacation pay. You still got all that money still went into your bank account. Okay. So when you sold the vacation, back whenever you sold it, that 5 weeks went into your bank account. 5 weeks worth of vacation pay went into your bank account. Then when you go to retire and you have 8 weeks worth of vacation left over on the books, they cash you out for that. That goes into your bank account. Okay. It's the fact that you got paid that is what allows us to, calculate this as part of your salary. So you keep all of the 13 weeks worth of pay in this example. It's just that 9 weeks worth of that pay is the limit on what we can include as pay for the purposes of calculating your retirement. Okay, before we welcome back the Tier 4 members, let me do some questions on this topic. And I see there's already 3 questions up on the board. Okay, the first question is, if one has 2 times their vacation accrual, for example, 160 hours of paid vacation per year for a total of 320 hours, what would be the best option, sale or vacation cash out? Okay, well, I think I kind of pretty much like answered that question. Um, the best option for you is whatever is the simplest. So if you are in this scenario where 2 times your accrual rate is more than your limit, you don't worry about selling. Just cash it out. Okay. Because it's not it just to keep it simple. Just simply cash it out. And there are scenarios where you might actually get paid slightly more for cashing out the vacation versus when you sold it. And so that could be like a very de minimis increase to that, actual dollar amount. I wouldn't get caught up in the weeds about that because it's going to be we're talking about very small amounts of money here. So I would say the best thing to do is whatever is the simplest, which is, just to cash it out. Now, if you are in the boat where you can't get up to you can't get up to your limit because of that 2 times your accrual rate limit, then that's when you would probably want to think about selling. Okay. So that would be my advice, is to just keep it simple. Try to do most of it with the cash out, but whatever you can't do with the cash out, then do with the vacation sell. Okay, next question. Do you include the management paid leave in addition to the accrued vacation earned? No. All of the other types of leave, including management leave, floating holidays, comp time, any other types of paid leave, are use it or lose it. So you got to use those before you retire, or they just disappear, and before you stop working. Now, the good news with that is that allows you to take a vacation. If you have some of those leave times, it allows you to take a vacation without using up your vacation leave, so that you can do this cash out thing and get the compensation and get the retirement allowance boost. Okay, next question. You're welcome. Absolutely. That is what I'm here for. Okay, next question. Let's see. So it seems as if the employee needs to weigh the benefit of selling the vacation of cash out of the vacation time to have a higher salary credit, but you don't get service credit for selling the vacation. Is that correct? Okay, so this is a good question. And I appreciate you asking this question, because this does come up often. People ask that exact question. Okay, yeah, I'm cashing it out, but I'm not getting service credit for that time. So I could have, in this example, theoretically, I could have taken that 9 weeks and just tacked that on to the end of my career and got 9 more weeks of service credit. And then I just, retire 9 weeks later. Yes, you can do that. And that will boost your service credit number by 9 weeks. But it's the amount that it will increase your retirement allowance is a fraction of what the increase to your retirement allowance that you will get from having 9 extra weeks of pay. This is like having 9 bonus weeks of pay in your average salary. And when we're taking the average salary, we're not, how I was telling you, we calculate it. We take your, let's say, 3 years worth of salary and dividing it by 36 months. We're still doing that when we calculate your average salary. We're still dividing by 36 months, but you're getting 9 bonus weeks of pay. So this is going to be a much larger boost to your, let me go back here. This is going to be a much larger boost to your pension than you would had you got the service credit for it. You're not even going to get probably even a 0.5% boost from having that 9 extra weeks of service credit. It'll be a tiny fraction. So if you're looking at getting more service credit or getting the pay boost, go for the vacation pay boost. Okay, next question. If I only sell vacation in the last year before retirement, does it count for something, or does it have to be sell every year for 3 years before retiring? whenever you go to retire, and for the vast majority of people, your final compensation period, if you're in tier 2, is your last 3 years. For tier 1, it's your last year. It's just in almost every case, people are making the most money at the end of their career. So just to give you that example, just to stick with that example, if that's the case. And your question is, if you only sell vacation in that last year rather than the 2 years before that, how does that affect things? Well, it doesn't really affect things because you can sell anywhere within that last 3 years. And we will be looking at that when we're considering how much vacation compensation you have received. So that it all comes through in your payroll records that we have in our database so that we can do these calculations. And we're going to be looking at any vacation you sold during that time. Now, if your question is, should I sell it more toward the beginning of that or more toward the end? Like I was saying earlier, you may be able to get, a slightly higher dollar amount for the vacation that you sold toward the end of that. But, like I'm recommending, I would try to do the majority of it as a cash out. And then you're thinking about, selling whatever the difference is to get back up to your limit. Otherwise, you don't necessarily really need to strategize, selling in a particular way, every year for the 3 years, unless there's some limiting factor that, is preventing you from getting up to your limit. That might be when you think about it, but I can't really think of a scenario where that would be the case. Absolutely. You are welcome. Okay, there's one more question up on the board. Should I cash out the maximum vacation time to raise the average monthly salary, or should I use my vacation to delay the retirement date to get more service credit? So yeah, I already answered this question. Definitely do the vacation time cash out because it gives you a much larger boost than pushing out your retirement date to get more service credit. I mean, it's not even close. You get a much larger boost from doing this vacation cash out than you would do from just getting that as service credit. Absolutely. Okay. Okay, tier 4 members. Sorry that took so long. And tier 3 members, welcome back. It is kind of a complex topic, but I like to give everyone the details because it really does help people plan for their retirement. Oh, looks like there's one more question. If you cash out 2 weeks vacation at the end per the slide, you receive 1.3% more. Yeah, so if that's what that slide said, simply by having even 2 weeks having 2 weeks of vacation compensation included as salary when we calculate your salary, that would give you a 1.3% increase to your retirement allowance, simply by doing that. Okay, let me talk about some limits to your retirement allowance. Most people do not hit these limits, so don't get too concerned. But let me tell you about what these are, because there are some limits here. Limit A is across all the tiers, and what this is simply the basic idea is it's preventing you from earning more in retirement than you are earning as a working employee. So what it says is that your retirement allowance cannot be more than what your monthly retirement allowance cannot be more than whatever your highest average monthly salary is calculated to be. Okay. Now we did just learn that your highest average monthly salary that we use to calculate your pension could be a tiny bit higher than what you were physically earning during your employment due to that vacation compensation inclusion. But your retirement allowance, it does effectively, basically prevent you from earning more in retirement than you are earning as a working employee, basically. And most people do not hit this limit because for tier 1 members, you need to earn, more than 30, 35 years of service credit at a certain age. For tier 2 members, it's like 40, 45 years of service credit. Most people retire with 20 years of service credit. So, very few people hit this hit this limit. If you do hit the limit, it's not bad news because it means that you're getting the exact amount in retirement that you were earning as you were working. So if you're at that limit, you might as well just go ahead and retire unless you absolutely love your job. Okay, there's two other limits here, B and C. These are for people who have really high salaries. I'm not going to spend much time here because that's, doesn't affect the vast majority of people, but I just wanted to tell you that these exist. You should read more about these two limits if you do have very high salaries at acera.org/limits. In some cases, the limits are ameliorated by other things. So, just check those out. Now, for Tier 4 members, there is a very real limit here that could affect, a number of people in Tier 4. And what Tier 4, the rules around Tier 4 are that there's a maximum amount of annual salary that we're allowed to include for the purposes of calculating your pension. The caps are in annual dollars. So for example, for 2022, the caps for general members is $134,974. For safety members, it's $161,969. During the year, once you earn more, if you have a higher annual salary than that, once you earn more than this amount, what happens is the cap kicks in and we stop taking retirement contributions out of your check for those amounts and until the year starts over. Okay. And then whenever we go to calculate retirement on an annual basis, we can't include any more dollars annually than these caps, even if you made more, even if you actually made more money than that. So sorry that cap exists, but that's just, part of the state's Pension Reform Act that they started that they introduced starting 2013, that created Tier 4. These limits do go up every year. So these are recalculated every year. So they do increase every year. So you can always check our acera.org limits page for what the limit is in any particular year. And let me see, there's a question. Does the Acera website tell you the service credit minus any vacation sellback that was taken years ago? If you're asking if your account tells you how much, if you log into your personal account, does it tell you exactly how much service credit you've earned? Yes, it does. If you sold vacation, that would not be included as service credit in that number that it's telling you. So yeah, it would not include that amount. So when you're looking at your service credit number, it's fairly accurate. And when I say fairly accurate, it's within, there's maybe a 2 to 4 week lag time. Get a specific estimate a little short for your situation. Because I've been talking in general about if it's very out of whack, retirement, your service credit number is way different than you think it should be. So you should go ahead and ask us for a service credit. How do you get an estimate of your specific do that ahead of time? Well, I'll show you two ways. That if you fill out the first one is kind of getting a ballpark form, and really a good way to think about this first actually you can do it about right in salary replacement account percent. There's a retirement estimate request financial planners will tell you fill that out and you ask for a service in order to maintain your standard of living. In retirement, you're going to need to have 70 to 80% go back and look at all your service whatever you were making while you were working database as you were in help with that. Just contact us. You can which is known as 70 to 80% salary replacement or our phone number. Retirement income is for our call center or 510-628. So this first way will show you what your salary replacement during business hours. We have a call center that is there. But then you can also kind of do a quick ballpark 510 back in the napkin 628 3000 calculation. See what a ballpark estimate of your retirement allowance would be. So what you do is you think of a retirement scenario, your retirement scenario. You think I'm probably going to retire, on this certain date, and on that date I will be a certain age and I will have a certain number of years of service credit. And you just kind of do it in round numbers here. So I'll be, in this example, I'll be 58. I'll have 29 years of service credit at retirement. Then we have these charts for you where you take those two numbers and you find your salary replacement number. If you go to acera.org/ballpark, it will take you right to it. I'll show you the way to actually navigate to it on our site. Go to our home page. Go under members, go down to understanding your retirement benefits. I'm sorry. Go down to planning your future retirement income, the third one down. And this is a step-by-step process of planning your future retirement income. Step one is getting an ACERA estimate. So option number one here is basically explaining to you what we're doing here right now. So all you do is you click the button for your tier. So I think this is a tier 2 example. So I'll click on tier 2A. And in this scenario, I was retiring at age 58 with 29 years of service credit. So you find where those two things intersect. And that means I'm going to be achieving 50.03% salary replacement in this retirement scenario. Another way to say it is that my ACERA pension is going to be 50% of my working salary. And that's actually pretty darn good for because Social Security is going to add another big percentage to your salary replacement. So if you were getting 50% of your salary replacement from your ACERA pension alone, that's pretty darn good. One thing I'll show you about the chart, one feature of this chart that's interesting before I go back to the presentation is another way to use this chart is to see the impact of working an additional year. So all you do is you take your retirement scenario, you find where they intersect, and then you go diagonally down the chart. If I work another year, in this example, I'll be age 59 when I retire, and I will have 30 years of service credit, and I will have my retirement allowance will be 54.5% of my working salary. If I work another year, I go another diagonal down, it'll be 59.42% of my salary. So you can kind of see what adding an additional year does in terms of salary replacement by going diagonally down the chart. But back to the worksheet on the presentation. If you want to fill out the worksheet like this, you put in your retirement age, years of service credit, and then you put in the percentage that the ballpark chart gives you, 50% basically. You just kind of think about what your monthly salary is because we're doing a ballpark estimate, and then you would just multiply that percentage times your salary, and that gives you your ballpark retirement allowance estimate for ACERA. Now, let me show you a second way where you get a precision estimate. This is using the benefit estimator in your account at acera.org. You can type in acera.org/WMS. It stands for Web Member Services. That's a direct link, or you can just go to acera.org and press the login button to get there. Okay, so on your worksheet, what you're going to do is you're going to think of a precise retirement scenario. I know that I want to retire on, a lot of people are going to retire probably in March of next year. So I know I want to retire on March 15th of 2023. So you do these dates here, and you're going to pick a separation date and a projected retirement date. Projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. Separation date, if you're going directly from active work into retirement, is the day before that. So you pick 2 consecutive days. Now, if that is not your scenario, if you're going to separate from your employment and defer your retirement to a later date, there would be some distance between these 2 dates. So you do whatever your retirement scenario is telling you to do by choosing those. You choose whatever dates for your specific scenario. You go out to our website, you click the login button, you get into our member portal that we've provided for you called Web Member Services. The first thing you'll see is your account summary screen, where a lot of your pension data is. It shows you your tier, your employer, whether you have reciprocity, your employment date, date of birth, entry date, years of service credit, how much you've contributed. If any of this seems off, go ahead and contact us. We'll look into it, get it corrected for you. Because we're talking about estimating a retirement benefit, you're going to click on Estimate a Benefit. This brings you to the benefit estimator. And here's where you put in the 2 dates. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better on the slide. You're going to put in your separation date and projected retirement date for your retirement scenario, and you're going to click Calculate. What it does is it knows all of your employment information up to now. Okay. And then it's going to project it in the future. In this retirement scenario, you will have earned this amount of service credit. And then it's going to also do a salary projection for you. And it's going to use that average monthly salary when it's calculating the retirement for you. It doesn't project salary increases in the future. So it's basically taking your current, your last pay check on record and any future pay periods it needs to fill out the rest of your final compensation period for your, if your retirement scenario is in the future, it's going to fill in those with your last pay period. So it's not calculating potential pay increases. Now, you do have the opportunity to override that amount of service credit and to override that salary number. If you wanted to see the impact of cost of living increases to your salary or a potential raise that you might get, you could override that salary figure here. If you want to see the impact of making a service credit purchase, you could override your service credit number here. And if you did want to do that, you would take the amount of service credit that you're trying to purchase, you add it to this number, and you put the grand total in the override field. We'll talk about this field in just a minute. And then what you do, you can put beneficiary info in here, make sure the beneficiary info is all correct, click get estimate, and you end up with this benefit estimate. Just to zoom, this is kind of the demographic info and some of the calculation data it's using to do the benefit estimate. But right here, down here is what your estimated monthly benefits are going to be in retirement. And there's different retirement options. We'll dive into that in detail in a little bit. For right now, you can just look at this number, the unmodified option, which is the biggest retirement allowance possible in this scenario. So you can kind of use that for right now as your retirement allowance projection. Okay, now what I'm going to do is show you how to use that field, that hours limit field. Let me see here. This one right here, adding hours of cash vacation compensation. So let me step back here for just a second. If you want a nice conservative estimate, you just leave this blank, okay? And it will give you a nice conservative retirement estimate. But if you're interested in the topic of how vacation compensation increases your retirement allowance, you can add hours of potential cash vacation compensation here to see how it affects your retirement allowance estimate. Okay. So I have created a section of your worksheet to help you not overestimate. The main reason that you might overestimate is because you've already sold vacation, and that vacation that you've already sold is already being calculated in this salary projection. So I'm going to help you figure out how to subtract that amount out and not overestimate. First of all, you go to this section of your worksheet. If you're a non-AHS employee, you're going to start here on these two fields. If you're an AHS employee, you start here. What you need to do is from the other part of the worksheet, get your limit in weeks and put it in here. Okay, so you're just transferring this number over. This is your limit of vacation compensation that we're allowed to include as service credit, or I'm sorry, as salary. Sorry to confuse you. So you transfer that number over here. Then you put in your weekly work hours. This person works 40 hours a week. They put that in the field. Then you multiply these two numbers together, because what we're doing here is we want to convert your limit of vacation compensation from weeks to hours. So you multiply them together. So now we know what your limit is in hours, 240 in this example. For AHS members, on your worksheet, we already knew what your limit was in hours. So you just simply transfer that number down to here. Okay. Now that we know your full limit, what we're going to do is subtract out any vacation that you already sold. So step one is what it's telling you here is run an estimate and leave that hours of cash vacation compensation field blank. You take that estimate, you look at the average salary date range that it's using to calculate your salary projection, and you think to yourself, did I sell any vacation during this time? If so, how much did I sell? If you don't remember, you may want to log in to your payroll records, look through your payroll records and see if you sold any vacation. Okay, so in this example I'm giving you, I think back, I look at that date range and I think, oh, I sold a week of vacation. That's 40 hours I sold. So then you simply subtract that amount from your limit, and this is the number you put in this field. So 200 hours of cash vacation compensation. So in this example, I already know that 40 hours of vacation is being included as salary in this salary projection. So what I want to see is what happens if I am compensated for an additional 200 hours of vacation. But if you have a different scenario where you are only wanting to see, oh, what happens if I I cash out an additional week of vacation, you would put 40 in here. Or what happens if I cash out an additional 2 weeks of vacation, you would put 80 in here. So however much vacation you want to see how it impacts your benefit estimate, you put it in here. You just don't want to put any more than your limit in here, which is what I'm showing you. So then you hit get estimate, and you end up with your retirement estimate. And like I was saying, these are your estimated monthly benefits for right now. You could just look at the unmodified option, and on your worksheet on the front page where we're doing the, get a precision estimate with the online benefit estimator, you could put that number in here in your worksheet if you so choose, just to keep track of what you did. You could also take this sheet, print it out, and staple it, to your worksheet. So that's another way to keep track of this stuff. Okay, let me see. I have a couple of questions up here. The question is, can you include the sick leave credit as hours in the service credit section of the benefit estimator? Absolutely. So you need to do a little math. 5 days isn't a ton of days, but what you need to do is, let's see, a good way to do it is what you need to do is figure out what fraction of a year you're trying to add. So if you know that there are however many work days there are in a year, what is it, like 180 or something? You would take the 5 days that you're trying to look at, you divide it by 2, because we're converting your sick leave days on a 2-to-1 basis. So then you have 2.5 days. You take the 2.5 days, divide it by the number of business days in a year, and that would give you the decimal amount to add to this projection. And then you put the new grand total in the service credit blank. Okay. To give you a very easy example, if you had 125 days of sick leave, that converts down to 62.5 days of service credit. I told you that equals about 12 weeks of work, 12 plus weeks. 12 weeks is about a quarter year. Quarter of a year is 0.25. And so you would take 0.25 and add it to this, whatever projection is giving you, and put the new grand total in the service credit field. And that would tell you the effect of that sick leave conversion on your benefit estimate. Okay, so there's another question. Seems as if sold vacation is already calculated. So only cash out vacation. So only the cash out vacation needs to be added. Is that correct? Is there a need to remember the sold vacation at all? The reason that you would want to remember the sold vacation is because I want you to not overestimate. In the example I was giving you, let me go back. In the example I was giving you, during this date range, I had sold a week of vacation. Okay. My limit for how much vacation compensation is includable in the salary calculation is 240 in this example. But there's already 40 hours that are being included in the monthly salary amount that it's going to use to calculate this. So I want to subtract out those hours. And that's why I'm subtracting it out from my limit. That's why you would want to keep track of how much you sold and don't put more than that. And what this date range is in here is this is essentially your final compensation period. So in this scenario, it's saying this is your period of highest pay during your career that we're using to do the salary projection. And so if you already sold vacation during the final compensation period, that's already going to be included in this estimate that it's giving you. So I hope that answers your question. There's another question. When you do the retirement benefit estimate, the option boxes are what we would earn monthly. Is that correct? Yes. So you're saying, so these are your estimated monthly benefits on the retirement benefit estimate. This is your monthly retirement allowance estimate that you would receive every month for the rest of your life. That is correct. You get paid on the last business day of every month for the rest of your life. Next question, is sold vacation, regarding the sold vacation, does it have to be consecutive 3 years or can it be calculated for the total years I've sold vacation? Are you asking if you sold vacation many years ago, like previously, and that sold vacation wasn't during this date range that's going to be your final compensation period, basically your period of highest pay? Does that count toward this? And the answer is no, that does not count toward this. So if you sold vacation, years ago, even if it was like 4 years ago, and your final compensation period is going to be, the 3 years leading up to retirement, that's not going to count in here. So any vacation you sold that's outside of this final compensation period is not going to be calculated, and there's no way for it to be calculated toward your pension. So yeah, in most cases, your final compensation is going to, for tier 2, it's going to be the 3 years prior to retirement. So we take your retirement date and it's going to be 3 years into the past. For tier 1, it's going to be 1 year into the past. For tier 4, it's going to be 3 years. For tier 3, it's going to be 1 year. In most cases, for some people, you might take maybe take a different job at the end of your career because you want to keep working, but you don't want to keep working as hard, and you just take a different position that doesn't pay as much. Well, in that case, we are going to go back into the past to some previous period. So maybe your final compensation period is not your last 3 years. Maybe it's your years 4, 3, and 2 leading up to your retirement. So it could be different. And then in that case, if you sold vacation during that time, then that could boost your retirement. Another scenario is if you work less than full time. That does not count against you salary wise. So let's say that you work you decide your last 6 years of work, you're in tier 2, your last 6 years of work, you're going to work half time. Well, what we will do, we're looking for the 3 years worth of salary or the equivalent of 3 years worth of salary. So we'll take that 6 years worth of half-time pay periods, we'll smash it all together to get the equivalent of 3 full-time years of salary for the purposes of calculating your pension. So working less than full-time does not count against you when we're calculating your salary. And yeah, the payment is once a month in retirement, every month on the last business day of the month for the rest of your life. Okay, there's one more question up here. Going back to the chart showing years of service and age, the longer you work after age 65, your percentage of retirement benefit goes up. This wasn't always the case. When did this change? Okay, I see what you're saying. Let me go back to that chart. Okay, so what you're saying is in this chart, if you work over age 65, you're thinking that in previous years, your retirement didn't keep going up. It actually does, because what's happening is that this is tier two. Tier two, the maximum age factor percentage, you reach it at age 65. It's 2.43% at age 65. So after age 65, you get the 2.43% in the chart. If you work till age 66, 67, 70, we're still going to use 2.43% as the age factor percentage in the retirement formula for you. But so your age factor percentage isn't going up anymore, but your years of service credit continue to go up. You're earning more and more service credit, which is another multiplier in the retirement formula. So working past 65, or whatever the maximum age factor age is for your tier, will usually continue to increase your retirement allowance. So there could be, like, we could add an age 66 column here, and the age factor percentage isn't going up, but we could continue multiplying out, more and more years of service credit. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, there's a third way to get a retirement benefit estimate in addition to the two I showed you, and that is having a SARA calculate it for you. You can send us a retirement estimate request by filling out a form on our website. There's also a form inside your account when you log in on our website to make that request. There's a waiting period for that because it takes us some time to process all these requests. There's a queue. We send you the estimate in the mail, so you got to wait for the mail to come through, versus doing it the Web Member Services Benefit Estimator. It's almost instantaneous. They both use the same software. It's the same math. You're going to get the same results. Okay, but if you do want us to calculate it for you, we will do it. Okay, moving on to the next item in our checklist. So I helped you understand how your pension works, how to get a benefit estimate. Let's talk about when you're actually eligible to first retire. How do you become eligible to retire? So we're talking about this milestone on the pension milestone chart, your retirement eligibility. What combination of years in service credit gets you there? I'm going to show you how to do it for tiers 1, 2, and 3 first, and then tier 4 on the next slide. So if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3, you have 3 kind of combinations here that get you to retirement eligibility. Option number 1 is that you're at least age 50. You're age 50 or older, and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have at least 10 years of membership with SARA, which it means at least 10 years has elapsed between your date of entry into SARA and when you're trying to retire. And that will give you retirement eligibility. If you are working straight from active work into retirement, another kind of way to think about it here is that you are at least age 50 and you've worked for at least 10 years. So you will have at least 10 years of service credit and at least 10 years of membership, and then you can retire. But you don't have to do it that way. If you need to leave work before you've reached 10 years of membership, but you have at least 5 years of service credit, you can do that. You just need to become a deferred member, defer your retirement until you've achieved 10 years of membership and you're over age 50, and then you can retire. Okay, option number 2, for general members, you have at least 30 years of service credit. For safety members, you have at least 20 years of service credit, and you can retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Otherwise, if you did have that much service credit and you're over age 50, you can just, retire at any time. Okay, option number 3 is you're at least age 70 and you have any amount of service credit, even if it's less than 5 years, and you can retire at age 70 or older with less than 5 years of service credit. So those are your 3 options for becoming eligible to retire. For tier 4 members, you have 2 options. The first one is that for general members, you're at least 52 years old. For safety members, you're at least 50. and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and then you're eligible to retire. You don't have to do that 10 years of membership thing like tiers 1 through 3 do. Or you can have any amount of service credit, even if it's less than 5 years, and retire at age 70 or older. So those are your two options. So now that you know your retirement eligibility date, you could put that in here on your worksheet if you like. If you happen to know that you've already been eligible to retire for some time, you can feel free to estimate there or just leave that blank if you know you're already eligible. Okay, let me help you choose a retirement date. This is our next item on the checklist. Because there's some things that you're going to want to think about. And we're talking about this milestone right here. At some point after you become eligible to retire, you're going to start thinking about choosing when to retire, when to start collecting the retirement that you've earned. So here are the things that you're probably going to want to think about when choosing that exact date. Okay. The first is, will you have enough in retirement income? And I'll tell you more about each one of these three things. Let me just show you the full list. Okay, we'll talk about the age factor percentage dates. We'll talk about the cost of living adjustment date. If there's a conflict between those two, I'll help you choose the exact right date to retire regarding timing it with your last day of work. Okay. So first topic, will you have enough income to retire? And I'm just these are just all quick topics that I'm gonna hit on. This is, purely optional. If you don't really want to do these calculations, you don't want to think about it, you just know you want to retire and you get what you're going to get, totally fine. You can do it. That's perfectly fine. You can do it that way. Many of you might want to take a little peek into the future, make sure that the income that you're going to receive in retirement will, be able to pay for your life in retirement. So it's good to go ahead and, do some just even quick estimates of that. You get that Acera retirement estimate like we've been talking about. See what percentage income replacement that you're going to be achieving. If you have a deferred compensation account, it's good to see how much, what your balance is in there, because that can help secure you in retirement on top of your Acera pension and your Social Security. If you're going to be eligible to collect Social Security, it's good to go ahead and get an estimate of that. And almost everyone will be. There are some exceptions, like safety members don't pay into the Social Security system. So if you didn't have any previous work that would get you Social Security eligible, you have to work, I think, at least 10 full-time years or the equivalent of 10 full-time years paying into the Social Security system. Then you get to collect Social Security. So if you are Social Security eligible, go ahead and get an estimate from them. It's pretty easy. They have an online estimator just like we do. If you've never done it, it's super easy. I highly recommend it. You log into your specific account with them and you can get an estimate. And then once you kind of see, you get a picture of your income in retirement, then you can, if you want to, think about your post-retirement expenses and see if, your income is going to cover your expenses. If not, you might want to, adjust your plan. Okay. So that's just my little pitch for taking a little peek into the future. We actually do have a page on our website that will take you step by step through that process. From Acera's homepage, you could scroll down to Ready to Retire and click on Estimate Your Retirement income. Yeah. And it'll take you step by step through this process. It'll give you the links out to our estimator, Social Security's estimator, your 457B account if you have one. There's even a retirement calculator here if there's extra credit, if you want to calculate your expenses. So, purely up to you. It's just a tool we have out there for you. Okay, topic number 2 in choosing your retirement date. Thinking about these age factor percentage dates. So if you recall, if you have not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, every quarter year, based on your birth date, that you don't retire, that you get older, you go up one notch in the age factor percentage chart, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage, which means your retirement allowance gets slightly higher just by you getting older. Okay. So for example, if your birthday is on January 15th, 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th, 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th, 3 quarters after your birthday is October 15th. So let's say that you have not achieved the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. And let's say that your birthday is January 15th and you're thinking about retiring on July 14th. Okay, don't do that, because if you just work on July 15th, retire on July 16th, just to be darn sure that you're past that date, you will go up one notch in the age factor chart. You will have a slightly higher age factor percentage, and your retirement allowance will increase by a little over 1% just by waiting those 2 days. Okay. Same is true with the other dates, the other quarter year dates based on your birthday. So I'm not telling you that you have to retire exactly after one of these quarter year birth dates. What I am telling you that I want you to do is be cognizant of these dates, because I don't want you to retire right before one and miss the cutoff for the next, for getting that little boost, that 1% boost to your retirement allowance, just by knowing what this date is and making sure that you retire after that date. So if you knew that you were going to retire like halfway in between these 2 dates, that's fine. You don't need to work another 6 weeks to get past the date. Okay. Okay. Cost of living adjustment. Let me tell you about this, because this is one of your vested benefits, and it also figures into sometimes choosing your retirement date for some people. The cost of living adjustment is an annual increase to your retirement allowance. So it's a percentage increase. It's based on inflation in the San Francisco Bay Area from December to December. You receive the cost of living adjustment if you're in retired status every year on April 1st. So everyone who's a retiree on April 1st gets the cost of living adjustment for that year. That means that if it's your first year of retirement, your first April 1st, if you retire on April 1st or right before April 1st or anytime before April 1st, when April 1st comes around, you will get the cost of living adjustment for that year. If you retire on April 2nd, you will miss the cost of living adjustment for that year, but you will get the cost of living adjustment for the next April 1st that comes around next year and every April 1st after that. Okay. There is an annual limit to your cost of living adjustment. For tiers 1 and 3, it's 3%. For tiers 2 and 4, it's 2%. Okay. Now let's say that inflation in the Bay Area from a particular December to December is 5%. Well, that becomes the cost of living adjustment number that we're looking at, except we have to limit it by the law to 2% or 3%. So what happens to the extra percentage points? Well, we will bank those extra percentage points for you in your COLA bank automatically for years in the future. If inflation is less than your maximum, let's say next year comes around, it's only 1%. Well, if you have banked percentages in your COLA bank, we'll take them out to get you up to your 2 or 3%. It's kind of complicated a little bit. The bottom line here is that if you've been retired for at least a few years, you will tend to have banked percentage points, and you tend to get your maximum cost of living adjustment every single year, 2 or 3%, because of that COLA banking. Okay. So yeah, the question is up on the board, if you retire on April 2nd, you wouldn't get the monthly amount. You wouldn't get the cost of living adjustment for that year. No, because there has to be a cutoff date every year. So if your first day of retirement is April 2nd, you would have missed the cost of living increase for that year. You would have had to retire on April 1st or before to get it. So there is a maybe 2 to 3 month period, probably more like 2 months after April 1st, that you would have earned more money had you retired on April 1st or slightly before every year, which is why March is our biggest retirement month, because people are already thinking about retiring in the spring, and they're like, okay, well, of course, I'm going to retire on April 1st or in March, or maybe even in February or January, so that I get the cost of living adjustment, because I don't want to miss out on that for this year, rather than retiring in April where you would miss the cost of living adjustment and you would have earned more money had you retired in March. So we don't get a lot of retirements in April. But there's nothing magic about April 1st, because if you're retiring at any other point in the year, January, December, November, October, September, you retire in September. When April 1st comes around, you get the cost of living adjustment. So there's nothing magic about retiring in March to get the cost of living adjustment. It's just that you want to be retired on or before April 1st in any particular year to get that year's cost of living adjustment. Okay, there's a question. When someone gets the individual retirement interview counseling appointment, does ACERA remind you all these little tips? Yeah, so they'll look at all that. They'll look at your whole scenario, age factor percentage dates, cost of living adjustment date, and they'll look for any red flags to make sure that you're picking a good retirement date that works, that maximizes your retirement. It is good to kind of remember this, kind of understand this stuff though, to advocate for yourself. Okay. And you can adjust your date. Yes. So if you're attending a pre-retirement seminar, if you have already turned in your retirement application, you can turn in a new retirement application with a different retirement date if you happen to want to adjust your date. Or if you simply want us to take your application out of the system, you just write us a quick letter, sign it. You can scan it in and upload that in your account in our web member services, or I think they'll let you email that in, and then we'll take your application out. So you can adjust your retirement date all the way up until your retirement date. After your retirement date, you can't adjust it. Okay, so people will ask, okay, what if I have a dilemma between the age factor percentage and the cost of living adjustment? For example, I'm still young enough where my age factor percentages are increasing. My birthday is January 5th. I'm retiring in the spring. Should I retire on April 16th, which means that I will get the age factor increase because I worked past April 5th. I worked on April 15th, retired after my age factor percentage quarter year cutoff, but I'll miss the cost of living adjustment that I would have gotten had I retired April 1st. Or should I retire on April 1st, get the cost of living increase, but I'll miss the age factor increase that I'll get if I work another, 2+ weeks and pass that April 15th date? Which should I do? Well, you probably already know the answer to this because I already gave you the percentage impact it will have to your retirement allowance. If the cost of living adjustment is the maximum, and we always know this in like the first week of February every year, we post it on our website, you go with the cost of living adjustment because you would get a 2% increase or a 3% increase based on your tier versus the little over 1% increase you would get based on the age factor percentage alone. This is only a dilemma if your birthday falls in a certain way and you're going to retire in the spring. But let's say that you're going to work another 3 months. In this example, you're going to retire after July 16th. Well, you're going to go up 2 notches in the age factor column. You're going to earn 3 more months of service credit. It's going to beat out any of these scenarios. So the rest of the year, after that first couple of months after April 1st, you just are going to earn more retirement than you would have had you retired on or before April 1st. So it's, you don't have to be too worried about this. Next topic, in choosing your retirement date. How do you line it up so that you get the sick leave conversion, so that you're going straight from active work into retirement? Because if you spend even 1 day as a deferred member, your sick leave will all disappear and we will not do the conversion for you. Okay. Don't have to worry about it. It's pretty easy. All you do, and I already showed you this chart before, you simply choose your retirement date based on it's the next day after your last day on payroll. Okay. It's okay. And in this example, it's the 24th and 25th of the month. It's okay if you're on leave this day. So you can be on vacation leave, you can be on sick leave, you can be on floating holiday, comp time, management leave, all okay. It's just that you're just in active payroll status. This is your last day on payroll status. This is the day that you write on your letter of resignation that you hand into your employer. This retirement date is the day that you write on your retirement application. If you do those things, it's easy. It means you're going straight from active work into retirement, and we will do the sick leave conversion for you. Okay. Now, one more thing that I want to tell you about this. There's a couple of more points here. You want to retire on a non-holiday day where you're scheduled to work the day before. And I actually think that your last day on payroll should not be a holiday as well. Okay, so make sure that that's not a holiday. Make sure your retirement date is not a holiday. Okay, then you want to have your retirement day to be on a day where you were actually scheduled to work the day before. So, for example, if you work Monday through Friday, your retirement first date should not be on Sunday or Monday. So going back to the previous slide, if you work Monday through Friday, you can retire on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. You would not want to retire on Sunday or Monday because you are not normally scheduled to work the day before that. Okay. If you have a schedule that is not regular, like you work maybe in law enforcement or healthcare, maybe you don't choose the exact retirement date until maybe a few weeks before when you see the schedule, just to make sure that you are scheduled to retire on a day after you would be scheduled to work. Okay. So there's a question, even if taking vacation time on the last day of work for unused sick leave, absolutely. It is totally okay if you're on leave. For ACERA's purposes, we don't care if you're on leave on that last day of payroll, last day on payroll. Your employer they're probably okay with it too, that you're on leave with that day, on leave that day. Okay. So if you're on leave that day, it's totally fine. Okay, so now we've talked about all the things that you may want to think about in choosing your exact retirement date. Now you may want to go ahead and put in your projected retirement date in your worksheet if you happen to have decided on it during the course of the presentation. And then you could also, if you plan on going straight into retirement, you could put in your separation date. So you take your projected retirement date, subtract 1 day, that's your separation date. Or another way to do it, you take your last day on payroll, add 1 day to it, that's your projected retirement date. Okay, there's a question. I want to retire on November 10th. The next day is a holiday. Is that okay? Because the next day is Veterans Day. I really need to nail this down for this presentation. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact answer to that. I feel like they told I have it here to retire on a non-holiday, but then they also told me that it's the last day of work, that it's important to be not a holiday. So here's what I suggest. I suggest calling into our call center and asking them. Sorry, I don't know the exact answer to that. I'll fix that for the future presentations. But go ahead and call into our call center. If you want it in writing, go ahead and send us an email just to make sure that it's okay for you to retire on November 10th and have Veterans Day be your first day of retirement. And then that won't mess anything up. So if you go to acera.org/contact, you can send us an email. Okay, next question. Is there any instance that separation date and retirement date would not be 1 day from the other? Yes. If you are going to defer your retirement, so you're not going to go straight from active status into retired status, you're going to terminate your employment and not retire immediately and become what we call a deferred member, where you're still an ACERA member, you're just on hold and you're deciding what to do. That would be an instance where those dates would not be one after the other. Maybe you wait a year and you don't retire because there's a specific reason that you're doing it. Maybe you're waiting till you turn age 50. You're not age 50 yet, and so you got to wait a year. So that would be
a scenario for that. And in that case, in all cases where you spend any time as a deferred member, you do lose all your accrued sick leave, and it does not convert to service credit. And I don't know why they set up that rule that way. That's just your employer's rule. Okay, let's talk about the retirement application process. Step one is we would really love for you to go through our section on our website of preparing to retire section, sarah.org/prepare. I'll show you how to get to it. So from the home page, you just go under members, preparing to retire. It's right there. I think there may also be a link down here under ready to retire, prepare to retire. So there's a couple of ways to get to it. This is in chronological order. You've actually probably done some of these steps. You're in the pre-retirement seminar. You already know when your eligibility date is. Maybe you've already considered purchasing service credit. We've already explained how vacation affects your pension. Okay, so you've already done a lot of this. You've already attended a pre-retirement seminar. There's a few other steps in here. Just go ahead and go through the section. That's step one. Step two, set up a ready to retire counseling session. So in that preparing to retire section, there's a form to fill out where you set up a ready to retire counseling session. We would love for you to do that in the 3 to 6 month period before you retire to fully prepare. But if it's already crunch time and you still need a counseling session, hopefully we can get you in. So don't stress out about that too much. You can go to sarah.org/counseling, or there's a link. It's the second to last step on that preparing to retire section. Schedule a ready to retire counseling session, and you just fill out the form, hit submit, and then we will contact you and get that session scheduled. The session will be scheduled for the 3-month period leading up to your retirement date. Okay. Step number 3, submit your retirement application. You can go to sarah.org/retire, or the last step on the preparing to retire page is submitting the application. Okay. There's a step-by-step process in here. So everything on the website, we take you through step-by-step to try not to stress you out. We have launched, as of this year, our new retirement application. It's in DocuSign. You do the whole thing online. You don't have to get out paper. You don't have to get out a pen. You don't have to have a printer to print documents. You don't have to have a scanner to scan the whole thing in. You don't have to email it to us. It's all submitted through DocuSign. Actually, I need to update this slide because you are going to, step 4, you're going to actually select your retirement option in that retirement application. So it's all combined now. I think in the step-by-step process, they will ask you to submit your retirement application before your retirement counseling date, and then they will review your retirement application during that ready to retire counseling session with you. So the way it works is you submit your retirement application, you go to your counseling session, which is optional. You don't have to go to the counseling session. You could just do it all through the application. You tell us what date you're going to be retired on that application. Once that date passes, you're retired. And then you get to start collecting that retirement that you've been earning throughout your entire career. It's going to be amazing. I feel really excited for you that you're going to get to retire. You're not going to have to go into your job again. You're going to get to do whatever you want. It's going to be amazing. Okay. So that's the process. I mean, it's not too complicated. There is a lot of information on the site, but like I said, we try to break it down for you step by step. Okay, there's a couple of questions up here. Can you prepare your retirement application on DocuSign and save it without submitting until you're ready? Good question. I think you can. One thing that I can tell you is you can, at any point, if you want to just peruse the application, you can go ahead and click the DocuSign link on the retire page, open up the application, and you can look around in there and just check out the application. And then look around in there, see if there's a save button. And if there is, then it will let you save, and then you can, fill it all out in advance and come back. Sorry, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. If you don't have a computer, you can do it. Can you do it without DocuSign? Absolutely. There is a PDF button on the website. Like if you have a smartphone, you could download the PDF. Or if you just call into our call center and say, mail me an application. I don't have a computer. I don't have a smartphone, or I don't even want to do it on the computer. I like paper. I'll mail it to you. Totally fine. We'll send you an application in the mail. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. Yeah, your retirement is going to be freaking amazing. Yep, you can mail your application for AHS. This deferred sick leave in the PTO. Yeah, let me check that out for you. There is for the sick leave conversion for AHS members. Let me see here. To get to the service credit page, you go under understanding your SARE benefits, and then earning and purchasing service credit. And there is some information regarding the sick leave conversion for AHS members. What happens to my unused sick leave? Okay, limits for Alameda Health System employees. So your unused PTO does not count towards service credit. Just the regular PTO does not count towards service credit conversion. And sorry, I should have mentioned that when I was talking about PTO. But if you have extended sick leave, that will count toward that sick leave conversion, or intermittent sick leave. So some people still have some intermittent sick leave that will count toward the sick leave conversion. Okay. You are welcome. There's another question. To verify if you sell vacation while you work, you lose service credit. I see. Okay, so the question is, if I sell my earned vacation for cash while I work, do I lose service credit? Sort of, because if you hadn't sold that vacation, then you could have tacked, like you sell a week of vacation, then you could have tacked that week on to the end of your career, pushed your retirement date out another week, and earn more service credit. But you kind of don't lose service credit because you're probably not basing your retirement scenario on whether or not you have that extra week of vacation. When it comes right down to it at the end of your career, you're more basing your whether you're going to retire or not and your retirement date based on your benefit estimate and your calculations and what works for you. And in that case, that whether or not you have that extra week, it's not going to make a big difference. It's probably pennies to your retirement allowance. So I wouldn't stress out over that. Okay, now that you know what date to submit the Ready to Retire counseling form, excuse me, is you take your projected retirement date, you subtract 6 months, and then in the 3 to 6 month window before you retire, you could write a date range in here. That's when you submit that. So you could write that in your worksheet. Expect your first retirement check within 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer's paycheck. Okay. And it depends on when in the month you actually retire, whether it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Now, for 99.9% of our members these days, we revamped our retirement process. It's probably 5 years ago now. And almost everyone, 99.9% of you, get right on your full retirement allowance right from the beginning. But there are a few members where there's an issue with your file, missing documentation, pending divorce orders, etc. That's not going to stop you from retiring. It's not going to stop you from starting to collect your retirement allowance. It's just your first retirement payment, and maybe a few will be 80% payments of what we project your final retirement allowance to be. Then when the issues are resolved, you'll start getting your 100% payments when we do your final calculation, and any retro payments for any less than 100% payments you received. Okay, this is the point in the seminar where I tell you about your retirement allowance options. I'm just doing a time check here. We have about 33 minutes left, and usually it takes about 30 minutes, maybe about 10 minutes to do this, 10, 15 to do this topic, and 30 minutes maybe to do the rest of it, which is healthcare. And so we may be running, 10, 15 minutes over, just to let you all know. Okay. You've just all had some really excellent questions that I wanted to make sure to get answered. Okay, so when you go to retire, on your retirement application, you're going to be choosing one of these retirement allowance options, the unmodified option or options 1 through 4. This is your opportunity to make your option selection on that retirement application. After you retire, you can't change options, so it's permanent. But don't stress out about that. You're going to pick the best option for you at the time of retirement, and I'll explain what each one of the options are. For each one of the options, I'll show you a slide. There's going to be a table. The top row is going to tell you about your retirement allowance as a retired member. The bottom rows are going to tell you about your beneficiaries' death benefits after you die. Okay. First option, the unmodified option. This is also subtitled 60% to your beneficiary. Okay. What this does, the unmodified option, and the majority of people pick this option because of this fact. It pays the highest retirement allowance to you that you've earned of any of the other options. Oh, sorry about that. I hit the microphone. Okay, so for your beneficiaries, and just let me step back here and define this term. Beneficiary is somebody who gets a benefit. In the context of ACERA, your ACERA beneficiary is the person that you designate to get your ACERA death benefit or death benefits upon your death. Okay. So with this, if you choose the unmodified option and your beneficiary is a spouse, state registered domestic partner who you have married at least 1 year before retirement, or if in the case of a domestic partner, registered at least 1 year before retirement, or your beneficiary is a minor child or your more than one minor children, your beneficiaries would receive a 60% monthly continuance. Now, continuance, that word just means a continuing payment every month. Okay. So in your retirement allowance, it's going to be a monthly payment every month for the rest of your life. Then you die, and the continuance starts when your beneficiary starts receiving a monthly payment. So that's what a monthly continuance means. Now, if it's a spouse or state registered domestic partner, that continuance will continue for the rest of their life. That's a lifetime continuance of 60% of whatever your retirement allowance was at the time of your retirement. That's where the 60% monthly continuance part comes in. If you have a service-connected disability retirement, it's 100% monthly continuance. Now, if you don't have a spouse or state registered domestic partner, but you have a minor child or minor children who you leave a continuance, who you designate as your continuance beneficiary, it's not a lifetime continuance, it's temporary. And it will stop at age 18 when each child reaches age 18. And so we'll split it up evenly among them. Like if you have 2 children, they will, probably reach age 18 at different times if they're not twins. And so each one individually will, their continuance would stop at that time, unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, and then it can continue until age 22, at which point it will cut off. It will also stop if they get married or register a state domestic partner anywhere in that time. Whoa, sorry, skipping around here. Okay, now there's more text down here. There's a different scenario where you don't have a spouse, state registered domestic partner, or minor children, but you still want to pick the unmodified option. That's fine. Feel free to pick the unmodified option. Happens all the time. Also, you can name a beneficiary. But you cannot name a beneficiary under the unmodified option for a monthly continuance. You can only name beneficiaries for lump sum payments. And the lump sum payment is going to be a one-time payment. It only happens once. It's right after your death. And what they will receive, your beneficiary, your lump sum beneficiary, is the balance of your Acera contribution account. So it's all of the retirement contributions you paid in throughout your entire career, plus all the interest that we've paid to that account over the years, minus any retirement allowance payments we've already made to you. So whenever you retire, we start deducting your retirement allowance payments from the balance of that account, essentially. And what happens is that contribution account is exhausted within the first 3 to 5 years of your retirement. So if you were to nominate a lump sum beneficiary and you were to die after that first 3 to 5 years of retirement, there would be no balance of the contribution account left over to pay as a lump sum to a beneficiary. There would be some smaller amounts like a partial month of your retirement allowance, any prepaid healthcare premiums if you enroll in our healthcare plans, the $1,000 lump sum death benefit, and there may be one or two other small payments there. But that's how that would work. The good news is if it didn't already occur to you, is that everything you paid in to Acera in the form of retirement contributions throughout your entire career, we're giving all that back to you within the first 3 to 5 years of retirement. Everything after that first 3 to 5 years is like an amazing bonus that you get to have because you participate in a defined benefit pension plan, and that's how they work. The whole point is to guarantee you a secure retirement income for the rest of your life. So it's really an amazing thing that you get to participate in a pension. They're getting rarer and rarer these days. Okay, one more scenario that I'd like to point out about the unmodified option. Maybe at the time of retirement, you named a continuance beneficiary, but that continuance beneficiary died before you do in retirement. You get the opportunity in retirement to name a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. Your only opportunity to name a continuance beneficiary is at the time of retirement. So like if you were to, maybe you didn't have a spouse at the time of retirement and then you got married in retirement, you can name your new spouse as a beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. Okay, there's a question. For the unmodified option, if I died very early first, then my continuance beneficiary, my husband, died very early later, and if there's still a balance left in my contribution account, can my adult child get the lump sum of the remaining balance? Absolutely. If there is ever, if your primary beneficiary has passed away and there's still a balance left in your contribution account, we always need to pay out any balance in your contribution account to a beneficiary. And so your contingent beneficiary, who in your example is your adult child, they would get the balance of the account. Okay, there's another question. Can a lump sum beneficiary be an organization or charity? Absolutely. People name organizations and charities all the time for lump sum payments. You cannot name a charity or anything like that, a trust, as a beneficiary for a continuance, because they could theoretically exist, now until the sun burns out, and we can't, pay a continuance for that long. Okay, that's the unmodified option. The rest of the options are pretty easy. Option number 1 is the only one of the 5 options that does not leave a continuance to any beneficiary at any time. A continuance is not even an option. What this does for you is it kind of does 2 things. It pays almost as much as the unmodified option. It's kind of an alternative option to the unmodified option for people who want to leave a larger lump sum possibly to a beneficiary. So it pays a little bit less than the unmodified option to you. What it does is it extends that 3 to 5 years that it takes to exhaust the balance of your contribution account to 10 to 12 years. There's some different accounting that happens. So if you died in the first 10 to 12 years, there would be a balance of your contribution account to pay out to a beneficiary. Okay. Option number 2. This does a couple of things. Okay. It pays 100% to a beneficiary. it lets you leave more than a 60% continuance to a beneficiary. You can leave 100% continuance to a beneficiary. It also lets you name anyone as a beneficiary. It doesn't have to be spouse, domestic partner, minor children. It can be anyone. Okay. So those are kind of the two advantages that it is for you. Now, the drawback is that it pays less than the unmodified option. And the amount less than the unmodified option it pays is based on the life expectancy of your beneficiary. If your beneficiary is significantly younger than you, they have a longer life expectancy, we are going to reduce your retirement allowance based on that expectation of us having to pay that beneficiary out for a longer period of time. And that calculation all happens at the beginning. It all happens at the time of retirement. If your beneficiary dies before you do, we don't recalculate your retirement allowance. Whatever your retirement allowance is calculated to be at the time of retirement, in all cases, is what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus cost of living increases. Okay. So did I cover all the points about this option? One more thing I want to mention is if your beneficiary is not your spouse and they're more than 10 years younger than you, there is an IRS rule that may prevent us from paying out quite to 100%. It may be something less, maybe like 95%, 90%. There are some footnotes on our retire page at sarah.org/retire that I'll go into details about that. There's a question. Can option 2 be split to 2 beneficiaries? No, that's option 4, which I will tell you in just a minute. Options 2 and 3 only let you leave a continuance to a single beneficiary. And then there's another question. Can you provide another beneficiary person if they die before you do? Okay, so like I said, the same rule applies to all of these options. You can name a continuance beneficiary at the time of retirement and not after. So if your continuous beneficiary dies before you do, you can't name a new continuance beneficiary to receive continuing payments after your death. You can only name lump sum beneficiaries. Okay, I think I covered everything for option number 2. Option number 3 is the exact same as option 2 with one difference. Rather than paying 100% of what you were getting in your retirement allowance at the time of your death as a continuance to your beneficiary, it pays 50% of your retirement allowance amount at the time of your death to your beneficiary for the rest of their life. Everything else about option 2 is the same. Option 3 is the same as option 2. But since option 3 is paying the beneficiary less, you'll find that option 3 pays more than option 2 because we're paying the beneficiary less. All the other same rules apply as option 2. Now, option 4, somebody asked about this. What if I want to leave a lifetime continuance to more than one beneficiary? Well, this is option 4. Option 4 lets you do a lot of different things. It lets you choose more than one beneficiary for continuance. A lot of the same rules as options 2 and 3 apply. You can name anyone as a beneficiary. If the beneficiary dies before you do, we don't recalculate your benefit, et cetera, et cetera. Your reduction from what the unmodified option would pay is based on the life expectancy of the youngest beneficiary that you choose. So you could name 2 people as a beneficiary. You have 2 adult children. You can't name them for a continuance under the unmodified option because they're adults, but you can name them under option 4 and they would get a lifetime retirement allowance each. You could also specify a percentage or a dollar amount to one or more of the beneficiaries. So let's say that you are going to leave 50-50 to 2 adult children and you look at how much that's going to reduce your retirement allowance and you're like, hang on, that's too much. I earned this. I earned this retirement throughout my career. I need to be financially solvent, throughout my retirement. So, I can't leave 50-50. Well, you could leave 20-20. So basically you'd be leaving a 40% continuance to 2 adult children split up evenly. So they would each get 20% continuance. Or if you want to leave a smaller continuance to one person, you could do that. So you have a nephew You want to leave a 10% continuance, lifetime continuance. You could do that. And you wouldn't get that much of a reduction from the unmodified option with a smaller continuance like that. So it does give you a lot of flexibility, option number 4. Now you're probably wondering, how do I get an estimate for these? Well, you do the exact same thing that I showed you before. You do the benefit estimator. This is the same screenshots I showed you before. What you're going to want to do is make sure that you put in your continuance beneficiary information in here correctly. If you're selecting a beneficiary from the dropdown that's already in there, make sure the date of birth is correct because some of them are incorrect. Click Get Estimate, and then just zooming in. Now, maybe these options make a little more sense to you, what the different options pay out. So it shows you what your member allowance would be under all of these cases. It will show you what your beneficiary's continuance would be for your continuance beneficiary after you die. There's a question for okay, the question is, when you did your retirement estimate, the date range was April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2023. So you're basically retiring in 2023, and then the last 3 years before that are going to be your final compensation period for tier 2. And then you're asking, however, when I sold vacation, as I understand, it's calculated by fiscal year. Well, that's their limitation for fiscal year. They'll only let you sell so much for fiscal year, but like you could sell, if they'll let you sell 2 weeks per fiscal year, you could sell 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July when the new fiscal year starts. So that, that's kind of your employer's limitation on actually physically selling vacation. But as long as you sell it, we see it come through. As long as they'll let you sell it, we'll see it come through in your payroll records, and then we'll look at it for how it affects how it increases your salary for the pension calculation. Okay, let me move on to the healthcare benefits and other benefits, because we're running out of time. Okay, there are these other benefits known as non-guaranteed benefits, also known as non-vested benefits. And they are additional benefits that the county in the past decided that the retirees needed to be able to pay for their lives in retirement. So they started a reserve fund to pay for these additional benefits. Now, the ability to offer the benefits is based on the sustainability of that reserve fund. Our Board of Retirement at Acera manages that reserve fund. They manage it to ensure its sustainability into the future. But that's to say that because they're non-vested benefits, they're not guaranteed, they might be reduced or eliminated in the future if that fund becomes less sustainable or unsustainable. Currently, that fund has never been more sustainable. The sustainability projection is very high. There's over $1 billion in that fund, so there's no worries about that. But what I want to show you about, first of all, about these benefits, there's a medical subsidy known as the monthly medical allowance, dental subsidy, vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy, and supplemental cost of living adjustment. Those are the 5 non-guaranteed benefits currently. You may have heard a little bit about this. We did a survey about these benefits recently that we sent out to all you to ask your opinions of these benefits. So the years of Acera service credit you need to qualify is the rule that the board has determined who gets to partake in these extra benefits. Supplemental cost of living adjustment is the only one that does not require any years of Acera service credit. All of the other ones start with 10 years of Acera service credit. And there's 2 different higher levels of the medical subsidy at 15 and 20 years. So let me show you what each of these benefits entails. The monthly medical allowance is the first one I will touch on. This one So you're probably in your employer's medical plan. When you stop your employment and retire, you can continue through COBRA, but it's going to be expensive. So you probably going to want to enroll in a medical plan through Acera. We offer you the ability to enroll in medical plans. And if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you get a subsidy to help pay for being enrolled in one of those medical plans called the monthly medical allowance. Like I said, it's not guaranteed. It offsets the costs of Acera's plans only, no outside plans. For our group plans, it offsets the cost of the monthly premiums. For the individual plans, it's not only the premiums, but copays and deductibles. The amount is set annually by Acera's Board of Retirement. You are responsible for paying any costs exceeding the subsidy, the monthly medical allowance, and it's only for you. It's only for your costs, not your beneficiaries, spouses, survivors, anyone else. Okay, here are the dollar amounts for 2022. These are monthly amounts. It's the monthly medical allowance. The full monthly medical allowance will offer you $596.73 to help you pay for your enrollment in one of Acera's medical plans. If you have at least 20 or more years of Acera service credit when you qualify, and this doesn't count. This is not reciprocal service credit. This is Acera service credit only. If you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit, it's $447.55. At least 10 years of Acera service credit, $298.37. Okay. So if somebody has 18 years of Acera service credit, like the question on the board, medical benefits will be, the monthly medical allowance will be $447.55. And it's not prorated within that category. It's just a flat amount, but for between 15 and 20 years of Acera service credit. Okay, now let me show you what the plans currently are. Our open enrollment is every month in November. That is your annual opportunity to change plans. But because you all are in the pre-retirement seminar, you're going to retire soon. You can get right into one of these plans at retirement. That's a qualifying event for you to get right into one of these plans. We will ensure that you have no gap in coverage. You will get right into one of these plans on your first day of retirement, and your counselor will help you do that. And there was a question up on the board. The counselor will also help you catch any bad decisions you're making about your date of retirement and cash out. So they definitely will. Okay, now think about these two sets of plans as non-Medicare eligible and Medicare eligible. Medicare is the federal government's healthcare system. You get to partake in that at age 65 and over generally when you become Medicare eligible. If you are going to choose an Acera plan and you're not yet age 65, you're going to be selecting from this set of plans. If you're Medicare eligible, it's going to be this set of plans. What I'll tell you about is our group plans through Kaiser and United Healthcare first, and then I'll tell you about individual plans through Via Benefits, whether you're non-Medicare eligible or Medicare eligible separately, kind of as one topic because it's easier to do that way. I'm just giving you a few details about the plans. The full details are always in our open enrollment guide that we publish every single year. You can find it at acera.org/guide. Okay, starting with the non-Medicare eligible group plans. You must live in the California service areas. That is the Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser Permanente, there's Santa Cruz. If you live outside those service areas, you cannot enroll in one of these group plans, and then you would need to choose an individual option through Via Benefits. If you live in one of these service areas, you cannot choose an individual option through Via Benefits. You must choose one of the group plans if you want coverage through Acera, if you're not Medicare eligible. Okay. You can see what the self premiums are for 2022. Starts at $781.42 for the United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage and goes up from there. The Kaiser plan is $843.16. You'll probably notice the monthly medical allowance does not really cover the whole cost of this. Okay, so you end up having, if you enroll in one of these plans, you end up paying part of the monthly cost of being enrolled in one of these plans. And the way it works is with this crude illustration of your retirement check stub, you'll have your gross retirement allowance. If you enroll in one of our plans, we will deduct the premium for you as a courtesy to you, as a convenience to you. We'll send the premium over to your health insurance carrier, in this case, Kaiser. Then we will, if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, whatever amount you're eligible for, we'll add that back into your check and you end up paying the difference. One thing I want to note here is all of these 5 non-guaranteed benefits, the medical, dental, vision, Medicare, supplemental cost of living adjustment benefits, they're not taxable income. Okay, so you will be receiving $596.73 in this example from Acera in this check. That's not taxable income. Okay. Now for the Medicare plans, the Medicare group plan, singular, because there's only one group plan option. If you're Medicare eligible and you want a group plan coverage through Acera, the only option is the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. Now, the way that you're probably not familiar with these, the way these Medicare plans work is Medicare provides most of the costs, most of the money for the cost of your care. And then these Senior Advantage plan or these Medicare Advantage plans like the Kaiser Permanente plan fill in the gaps and give you a higher level of coverage than you would get from Medicare alone. So because Medicare is spending most of the money, these plans cost a lot less than the plans do for people who are not Medicare eligible. One thing that I want to illustrate here is I've put in an extra, like you can see that the self premium is $344.44, so it's pretty affordable. If you both have Medicare, it's double, $688.88. You can see different combinations of what the premium would be with different family members. One thing I want to illustrate is how the monthly medical allowance works with this. The monthly medical allowance amount, the monthly medical allowance only pays up to the amount of the self premium. So you do not get to keep the change. So that's why in this scenario, your monthly medical allowance would be the exact same as the premium amount because it doesn't pay over the amount of the premium. So you don't get to keep the change for the group plans, but you end up paying zero out of pocket for being enrolled in that plan. Okay. Now there's a question up on the board. What happens to medical coverage if you retire and move outside of California? That's a good segue into our discussion of VIA benefits. What I was just telling you is the group plans that we contract with those those carriers, Kaiser Permanente and United Healthcare. Now, if you move outside of those areas or outside of California, you have an option of getting an individual plan through VIA benefits. Okay, so who can enroll in a VIA benefits plan and individual plan? Well, if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you have to live in the US, but outside the Acera group plan service areas for Kaiser and United Healthcare. If you're Medicare eligible, you just have to live in the US, anywhere in the US. You can live in San Leandro, doesn't matter. You can pick an individual plan versus the Kaiser plan. You just have to enroll in Medicare. Medicare Parts A and B, and then you can enroll in one of our individual Medicare plans. Now, what is VIA benefits? It is a private health insurance exchange. They do all the legwork of contracting individually with a whole bunch of different insurance carriers, more than 80 of them, in order to provide plans to offer to our retirees, to connect our retirees with plans. So what you do is you call them up, or you can do it online, but if you call them up, you're going to talk to a benefit advisor who's going to help you narrow all this stuff down. You tell them where you live or where you're going to live, how much you want to spend, what level of coverage you have. You can even tell them what medications you need, what doctors you want to visit. They'll narrow down their 1,000 plans to just a handful, and then they'll send you literature on those plans, and you can choose the right one for you. Okay, it works. It's a pretty good system. It works pretty well. One thing I want to point out is the monthly premiums depend on which plan you select. So there's 1,000 plans. There's 1,000 different premiums. So I can't tell you how much it's going to cost. I will tell you that it tends to cost less than the Kaiser plan, like a lot less than that Kaiser plan, which was $344.44. And there is a United Healthcare option in there if you like United Healthcare. Also, the monthly medical allowance in the individual plans not only pays for premiums, but also deductibles and copays. So in this case, you do get to keep the change to pay for your deductibles and copays. Now, how we provide the monthly medical allowance amount to you is a little bit different than it coming in and out of your retirement check. We can't really do it. It's too complicated with 1,000 different plans. So here's how it works. If you enroll in an individual plan through Via Benefits and you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, what Sarah will do is take your monthly medical allowance and send it over to Via Benefits, and they will open for you a health reimbursement account, and they'll plop that monthly medical allowance amount into that account for you, and it'll sit there and wait. Now you are going to incur some expenses. You're going to enroll in medical coverage, which means you're going to have to pay an insurance company a monthly premium to enroll in their plan. So you pay them directly. You're also going to go to the doctor, hopefully, and you're going to pay a copay. So you're going to be out some money. What you do is you submit reimbursement claims back to Via Benefits, and they will pay your monthly medical allowance amount back to you out of your health reimbursement account to make you whole. You can set up a lot of the stuff to happen automatically, especially recurring premium payments and recurring reimbursements for that. And then you would just have to do the reimbursements for the doctor's visits. They have an app that makes it easy. You can do it all through their website to make it easy. So it's not that difficult. One thing that I do want to point out is because those, if you are specifically in Medicare and you pick an individual plan through Via Benefits, those plans tend to be so inexpensive that the Board of Retirement decided they would need to have a slightly lower set of monthly medical allowance amounts for those plans, which are listed out here. So you can see it doesn't go up to 500 and whatever, it's 457.13. But we do find that 90 or more percent of the people who have the 20-year monthly medical allowance don't run out of the money. So it pays for their full costs throughout the year. Question, can the monthly medical allowance be used if healthcare is in a foreign country? If you're talking about enrolling in a plan and trying to pay for enrollment in that plan in a foreign country, no, it cannot be used for that. If you're talking about visiting a foreign country on vacation and you have a health emergency that you have to spend money on, and then you need to get reimbursed for that, yes, there is coverage for that. So if you do move to a foreign country, hopefully you're going to move to one of those countries in the rest of the world that has universal healthcare, where you don't have to pay for healthcare, like the US seems to be unable to do. So that, you might even get better healthcare over there. So that's a whole different topic. Okay, moving on to dental. Now, here's how dental works. If you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit when you retire or a service-connected disability retirement, you have to enroll in a dental plan, but it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you $0 in regards to a monthly premium. So the self-premium that you pay and the subsidy are the same amount. What that means is if you enroll in the Delta Dental PPO and your monthly ACERA check stub comes, you'll see $445.15 come out of your check in the deductions column. We send that to Delta Dental for you. Then you'll see $44.15 come out of your check. And then we'll put $44.15 in the form of a subsidy back into your check. So it costs you $0. You can enroll self plus one if you want, family if you want. To figure out how much out of pocket you would pay, you just subtract like the self plus one from the self subsidy. If you have less than 10 years of ACERA service credit, you can still enroll in the dental plan. You just have to pay the premium amount. So it's not a huge deal. Delta Dental PPO is a nationwide coverage, so you can live anywhere in the US and get coverage. Vision works pretty much how dental works. If you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit or a service-connected disability, you get the VSP standard plan at no cost automatically. If you want to buy up into the VSP premium plan, which gets you frames every 12 months instead of every 24 months, and some higher reimbursements, then you can do that. But what you would pay is the subsidy stays the same at $3.97. You just pay the difference between these two costs. And then for the voluntary enrollment, it's the same thing. If you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can enroll. It's just a different set of premiums, excuse me, and you have to pay the full cost. Okay, question. Why does it come out then right back into the account for dental and vision? It's because the amount that we're taking out is your premium cost that we are then paying to VSP and Delta Dental for you to maintain enrollment in that plan. Okay. But then because we're subsidizing that, we are taking money out of that reserve fund and putting it into your check for you. So it's just some accounting, and the bottom line is it's zero out of pocket for you. There's a question, if I choose Self Plus One, am I only subsidized for the cost? Yes. For all of these subsidies, dental, vision, medical, Medicare, they're only for you, the member. I do believe the supplemental cost of living adjustment will maintain the buying power of your beneficiaries after you die. So I think that one does. That one can go to beneficiaries after your death. Okay, Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. This helps subsidize the cost for you of enrolling in Medicare Part B. You get this if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit or service-connected disability. All you need to do is enroll in it one time. You got to remember to do it, but we will remind you, because when you become Medicare eligible, we'll send you an invitation to attend our Medicare transition webinar, and you will remind you then. We'll help you fill out the form at that time. Or if you're already over 65 and you're still working, maybe just go ahead and enroll in that seminar and learn all about Medicare. You can find that out on our website. What this will do is reimburse you for the cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B at the lowest cost that anyone pays, which we find that most people pay, most of our retirees. So for 2022, for example, it's $170.10. You pay that to Medicare directly, but then if you enroll in this, you'll see $170.10 show up in your retirement check tax-free. So it's a pretty good deal. One thing I do want to mention for the safety members, you can enroll in Medicare. Everyone can enroll in Medicare once you become 65. It's just that if you didn't pay into the Medicare system throughout your career, they'll charge you for Medicare Part A. You'll have to pay for that as well. But it's, I don't think it's a huge thing. And we'll tell you more about that during the Medicare transition seminar when you attend that. Last non-guaranteed benefit is the supplemental cost of living adjustment, which this is a really powerful benefit. I think this is a really great benefit. What this does is this prevents you from losing ground to inflation, very much ground to inflation in retirement. What this will do is maintain you at least 85% of your original buying power that you enjoyed at the time of retirement. So what happens is inflation tends to be 3% a year. It's been in the news. It's been, way more over the last year due to a lot of world factors. And so you'll lose buying power to inflation in retirement. But if you lose at more than 15% of your buying power at any time in your retirement, the supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and it keeps you at 85% of your original buying power. And it does that for the rest of your life. So you can never lose more than 15% of your buying power that you had at the time of retirement to inflation. So it's very powerful. Okay, so great. We're only about 6 minutes over right now, and this is really the last slide I have for you. And then I'll turn it over to Jean Hilliard, who will tell you about the deferred compensation program and the 457B plan. So let me just go through these bullet points real fast. Okay. These are some life events. These don't apply to everyone. That's why I don't have a slide about each one of these, but I do have a link here where you may want to read more information about each one of these events. So for example, deferred retirement. I mentioned this concept at a few points during the presentation. If you stop working, I have in parentheses here, quitting before retirement. It's where you terminate your job. but you don't retire yet. You defer your retirement to a later date. Well, there's some things you're going to want to know about that. And I recommend reading our page on deferred retirement before you do that, because you can retire out of deferred status too. You can become a deferred member. You're putting your retirement off a little bit, but then you retire. Okay. Real quick, I will say as a blanket statement, if the only reason you're becoming a deferred member is because you're already ready to retire, but you're trying to let that age factor percentage get bigger, you don't want to do that, because yes, when you finally do retire, you'll have a higher retirement allowance, but you're missing out on retirement payments and you'll never catch up if you sit down and do the calculations. Okay. Second bullet point. I've told you a lot about the death benefits available to your beneficiaries for when your death occurs after retirement. However, should you die before you retire, there are death benefits available to your beneficiaries, and those are listed out on our death benefits page, acera.org/death. Okay, third point. Divorce or domestic partnership dissolution can have an effect on your Acera retirement because California is a community property state. So the retirement that you've earned is considered community property when you go to negotiate your divorce or domestic partnership dissolution settlement. That community property can be divided up. So I recommend reading our page on divorce if you're facing a divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. Next bullet point, disability retirement. So I've told you a lot about planning for retirement. You work your career, you plan for your retirement, and you retire based on your plan. Well, that doesn't happen every time. Some people, unfortunately, will become disabled and have a disability that they can no longer go on working. They have to retire early. So one of the kind of vested features of the vested system is that you do have the opportunity to apply for disability retirement should you need it. And you can retire early on a disability retirement. And in fact, if you're already eligible to retire on the regular retirement and you're permanently disabled, you can't do your job duties anymore, but disability retirement takes some time. It could take like a year for that to go through the whole process. You can retire on your regular retirement while you're waiting for the disability retirement process to go through. Okay. So if you want more information about that, definitely visit our disability retirement page. Next bullet point, working after retirement. If you go to work after you retire from Acera from any employer, except for one of our 6 participating employers that participates in Acera, we don't care. Have at it. Feel free to do that if you like. Gene Hilliard is going to come on here and he's going to tell you that he would prefer that you don't have to do that you only do that if you want to. And he's going to help you, get your final stuff in order regarding your extra savings and deferred comp for retirement. Okay. But if you do want to go work, you're going to collect the paycheck from your other employer. We're going to send you a retirement check. We don't care. You're going to get that every month for the rest of your life. Now, if you do go back to work for one of our participating employers, like you go back in your current job as what they call a retired annuitant, there are some rules around that you're going to need to know about. And I recommend visiting that page on our website. Okay, last bullet point, relocating after retirement. So this can affect the healthcare plans that you enroll in. So it's good to check into that with us before you relocate. But with this will affect our ability to communicate with you through the mail. So please, if you relocate, just fill out our address change form. That helps us continue to send you our annual report, any official correspondence we need, and most importantly, your open enrollment packet that we send every year in the mail to you. If you want to keep track of what's happening at Acera, go to acera.org/subscribe. Subscribe to our news. We hardly send out any news through this. You're very rarely going to see us pop up in your inbox, but it is the best way to keep track of what's happening with Acera without constantly, going to see if our news page. You can always email us. Visit acera.org/contact. There's an email form there. This is the number to our call center, 628-3000. We have people there that their entire job is to be an expert on the system and answer your questions and get you situated with what you need to get situated with. And then before I let you go, there is one quick question. Can contributions to deferred retirement account continue after retirement? I'll let Gene answer that question when he comes up. You can't continue to contribute to Acera though. You don't want to. You've already contributed enough. You've earned the retirement. Now it's time to collect it. And on that note, I'll say that on behalf of Acera's Board of Retirement and Acera staff, we wish you a beautiful retirement. You earned it. So thanks for doing the public service that you've done throughout your entire career. You're amazing. And I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. Thanks for spending this time with me, and a beautiful life and beautiful retirement. So thanks.